Bungler. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Hey, Bungler.
Hey.
I saw you changing your backgrounds. That was pretty cool.
I was just goofing around. They all look pretty silly. But I got...
Hello. Let me say hello to everybody. Daniel Berry. Hello, hello. How are you? Happy Thursday. Mythical. Yay. I'm glad you like my intro. I gotta complain. It's too long. It's like, but that's what you're doing. Well, you're letting people be notified. Like, you gotta have some time there. Buckeye. How are you doing? So, wow. I'm going to tell you, I needed a break. Oh, hey, say hi to everybody, Bungler.
Hello to everyone. How's everybody doing? Is everyone okay? You got snacks?
He was serenading me right before the stream.
I don't know if that's what I would call it.
Well, he was singing Jimmy Crackhorn, and it was entertaining, his words. Hello, David Rogers. How you doing? Yeah. So anyway, I haven't talked to you in a while. I need to catch up. What am I doing? My mouse. I'm going nuts over here. All right. Well, tonight's show, I was going to do something that was a little bit more serious. I'm not that this is not serious. It is serious. But I just couldn't, y'all. I needed my brain and true crime, like, it's getting to me. I needed to just, like, talk about something different. So, I hope you all enjoy this, because I found some interesting stuff. What are you looking at, brain?
I hate to do the ADHD thing, but I literally see a squirrel.
We're going to talk a lot about ADHD. Wow, I found some stuff, and she's not in here yet, but Hiawatha, when I was asking y'all, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? And for those of you who wanted to talk about Riley Strain or Micah Miller, we will do that tomorrow night, I promise. I'm going to do some updates, and so don't worry, we're getting there. But yeah, ADHD, squirrels. That's what we're going to be talking about. As it relates to, I didn't know this could relate to the paranormal. Have you ever heard such a thing? Like, when you get diagnosed for ADHD, does the doctor come in and say, okay, well, we think that you may be more predisposed to, seeing cryptids or having ghosts, just FYI?
I don't know. I have a surprisingly low amount of things like that I've seen. As it feels like, rather. But I understand how it could be that way too. And we can talk about, like, the details of that later. I'm pretty sure you have ADD or something like that.
Oh yeah,
or some
yeah.
sort.
I do.
I know I do. And only in the last couple of months I started taking medication again, and I'm starting to understand how it's possible that you would be more predisposed to see things like that. With ADHD, but we can talk about that in a bit.
Yeah. You're well versed in ufology. Okay. Well, let me start with where I started, because, okay, Hiawatha brought it to my attention that some people say that if you have seen a cryptid, like, I've told y'all, one day I'll tell you my Bigfoot story. That will be today. That will be later. But, and people have also told me, and maybe David, you can let me know if this is true, but people have said to me before that Bigfoot and UFOs, like, a lot of times there'll be sightings of both in the same area. And I did not know that. I
did not know that.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like that. Seeing Bigfoot.
I have.
And I was pretty sure they were both, like, localized events.
Well, I mean, all I can say is I have seen it. I've heard it a lot from people. Yeah, I think ADHD people do think outside the box, mythical. Absolutely. So, anyway, Let me show you what I found though. So I go to the great AI in the sky, and I'm like, okay, because it can pull up articles so quick for me to read. And I was asking, is there any kind of hold on, I'm getting that echo again. Let me redo that. Okay. Can you still hear me, Bungler?
Yeah.
They're interdimensional. Are you talking about the cryptids or the UFO peoples, the unidentified peoples? Um, I guess you're talking about the Sasquatch. That's what Okay, yeah, that's what I've heard. Um, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And I was listening to a woman today from Georgia that said that she's seen two kinds of Sasquatch. One that she was 100% sure was an actual creature, and another kind that she felt like was interdimensional. So I don't know. Okay, so I'm asking the great AI in the sky, what? And this is what science has come up with. Okay, I'll be telling you, I'm not that impressed. But according to studies, in 2006, they a study, and I'm going to show you exactly where that's from in case you want to read it. They found that psychological tendencies like ADHD, dissociation, and depression were associated with stronger beliefs in paranormal phenomena like ghosts, UFOs, ESP, astrology, and cryptids. However, the believers in each phenomenon differed psychologically in predictable ways. Well, of course, because it's not the same. The study suggests that cognitive biases and pre existing psychological tendencies may predispose people to specific perceptual and cognitive errors, making them more likely to believe in paranormal claims. Okay, now what the actual. So let me go ahead and show you where this is from. This is the article written by Matthew J. Sharps. It's a lot of it's technical, and I'm like, not saying it's impossible. It's impossible, but I'll break it down for you. Um, they're saying that if you believe in paranormal phenomena and cryptids, that you're predisposed to see them. I personally feel that if you see them, you believe in them. That's why I don't think you're predisposed. I think that you have an encounter and then you are sure that they exist or whatever paranormal experience. And so, therefore, I think it's backwards, personally, from my from what I know, my experience. But it says psychological tendencies toward attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, dissociation, depression, even at subclinical levels, may be associated with systematically with particular paranormal or cryptozoological beliefs. And basically what they're saying, Bungle, is that they kind of call it like the eyewitness syndrome, where eyewitnesses don't really, they think they say something, they think they see something in a witness, but a lot of it has to do with how they think or what they're predisposed to. Anyway, I think it's a bunch of horse pucky. That's my opinion. What do you think?
Okay, I
Hello,
think that
Robin.
it's I think that it's both. I think for sure there are people out there who allow their imaginations to run away from them or with them to run. You know what I'm saying? I think there are people like that want to believe in such things. They want things like that to exist, and they're more predisposed to believe in those things. But I also think, so I'll say this, having ADHD my entire life, I understand. And then now recently being medicated and comparing how I feel on medication to how people who do not have ADHD around me seem to interact and digest the world, I believe that I understand a little bit about how that works. And what I will say, for one, is that on medication, I've noticed that the amount of power No. ADHD does this fascinating thing where your inner world is so vast. There's so much going on in your mind that
Yes.
your association with the physical world around you is much more limited. Now, I will say, I developed a very strong sense of like my body being in tune with things around me, but the physical world itself, I don't care about it. My brain, I don't think about it. There's so much going on that if I don't see it, it doesn't exist. Right. That's one reason ADHD people have like leave things in a mess to the naked eye, because things need to be out and visible for you to remember that they exist. And what goes on in this internal world is a good question. It depends on the person. Like I said, some people have very active imagination. Some people are artistic and they are more likely to dream up scenarios and stuff like that. And what I think it's important is to be able to differentiate like probability and possibility, and be able to differentiate like, am I just imagining this? Would I be more likely to imagine this? Or am I actually experiencing this right now?
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I've noticed when I've been taking medication, especially in higher doses, where I don't like it sounds schizo, but on ADHD there's this secondary voice essentially that's always playing in your mind. It's your thought, but you don't control it. It's always going, and you're split into two halves. You've got this poking, prodding, like ghostly voice, kind of like always like just looking around. And a lot of times they'll both like come together, especially when you see something that you need to have fixed, or like, oh, I haven't done the dishes in a while, or I haven't eaten today, or whatever. You'll say like it'll all join together, but then those will start to split again. What I've noticed is that on medication, that secondary voice is completely eliminated. It doesn't exist at all. All you have is just what's in front of you and nothing else. So what I think happens and how I felt is that I'm much more in tune with only the physical world around me on medication, because there isn't this expanse of like questioning. There isn't this poking and prodding. Now there's still skepticism, a cynicism to a degree based on, who I am and who you're most likely to be. But the reasoning behind, I think, seeing or being more predisposed to see, paranormal phenomenon is most likely that you, as an ADHD person specifically, kind of float in between worlds. Now, I don't like to just make the assumption that there's a spiritual world around us all the time, but I will say that, and this is a bit of a ramble or rant, but this age in human history is the only age where spiritual science and spiritual like happenings and interactions around us has been almost completely eliminated as far as the accepted school of thought ever since Newtonian physics came about, where everything is based solely in the physical world, even though we have ancient structures and civilizations and texts and writing and storytelling all revolving around things that are possible to do in this more spiritual sense. But we could talk about that later or never. But basically, the text, what you just read there was so pointed. It was saying like, it was heavily implying that having a neurodivergence, like a weakness or a difficulty or whatever, makes you more likely to believe in things that don't exist, which I am really annoyed by, because the idea that ADHD, for example, is a hindrance is only come about since the industrial age, when everything has been set down from used to have hunters and gatherers and farmer types. And now, since the industrial age, the world is set in stone as farmer type people or neurotypical. But it's just a matter of the culture, and biology doesn't translate, or we don't evolve quickly enough to all be like not ADHD, to all be like, straightforward or whatever in such a short time period. If you look at the like historical chart or whatever, the industrial age happened around, the 1800s, and biological evolution takes thousands of years at minimum. So, but the world around us and people now are like, you got an ADHD, you got to get that fixed. There's something wrong with it. Mm-hmm. But it used to be that this hyper awareness of just things around you, and poking and prodding, and like living in a 360-degree bubble used to be extremely valuable, especially as a hunter or gatherer. Being able to keep up with multiple things at the same time, being ready at a moment's notice to choose to fight or flee if a predator appears. There's so many applications where the ADHD brain was required, and now it isn't.
Right. Yeah.
And
Your pediatrician was also ADHD, and he said he felt like it was more like a superpower, and I kind of agree. It kind of gets in my way sometimes. It really does, but the hyper awareness, is, to me, it's very good. Now the problem. And this is Just Robin says, this is also my problem, because even though I was diagnosed, unlike Brain, I have ADD with spurts. I don't know, with spurts of HD. Okay, I'm not hyper all the time, as you can tell. Brain is a lot. But he says, or Just Robin says, my 15-year-old grandson is ADHD, and he travels in his own world. It scares me because he doesn't pay any attention to the world going on around him. See, that is me a lot, unfortunately. In my own head. So, yeah, Hiawatha, they do. They want to medicate everything because they want everybody to be the same, cookie cutters, and we're not. Let's see. I experienced a near fatal motorcycle wreck in 2012 with bleeding on the brain, concussion, and in the end taking Adderall for diagnosed ADHD. Yeah, you know what? You're in favor of medication. I am not, but you are, aren't you, Brain Bungler?
It is highly dependent on the person. I think that the problem is that ADHD, and I've heard psychologists talk about this, ADHD can be treated without medication, but the problem is that the fundamental aspects of how ADHD works still persist outside of medication. I think what people with ADHD should do is learn to maintain a strong grip on themselves, or putting their foot to the pedal and holding it down. I think the problem with the ADHD is that when you let go, or like you just go hands off, that's when problems start to arise. But I think the difference is that, especially as you get older, I think both can be used, right? I think medication can be very useful and very powerful and very strong, but it's also very limiting in who you are as a person, especially. And I'm not even going to say just because you weren't born to be that way, but because the brain doesn't, when you force it to work one way, in a way that is outside the way that it was built to, you essentially shut off a portion of your brain that allows you to work efficiently. Say at 100% capacity, whereas a neurotypical person doesn't need that kind of medication to be able to work. An ADHD person taking medication essentially has got 60% total brain power. But it just depends on the task that needs to be done. If you're stuck in an office for 8 hours, you don't need that 40% extra brain power for problem solving and, critical thinking and all this kind of thing. And what happens is that 40% actually turns into an 80% like net negative when it's competing against your, basic daily output, tasks. Right. So I guess the thing is that, ADHD is very powerful. It's very strong. I don't know if I would call it a superpower. There are a couple of other psychologists, especially I think it's a leading psychologist based on an ADHD study. He says it is terrible to think, and don't ever think, that ADHD is a superpower. And I just simply don't agree with him. I think that just like with any superpower, you need to learn how to control it and how to, like, just having it isn't a superpower. Just like Cyclops from the X-Men, just having laser eyes isn't a superpower. It's destructive and it can ruin everything, but you have to be able to control it. And so I think that's the point. and as far as the way that it relates to paranormal sightings and stuff like that, um, I don't think that it has much bearing, honestly. Like, I
Yeah, I
think
don't either.
that an ADHD person is more likely to be willing to see something like that, and more ready to see an event like that. But at the same time, I think an ADHD person is more likely to fabricate an event like that as well. And that's something that, as I've been growing up and hearing stories from several different people, I think it's important to stay skeptical about everything that you hear, because every experience is through the lens of that person's life. Like, they're not going to say that they saw something that they've never ever had any experience with, unless it was like hands down factual. um
Well, I
so
mean, yeah, I think okay, but if you read the long study of this, what they found, and so this is why I don't agree with it. First of all, having ADD, ADHD, to me that has no bearing on it. Actually, it makes it being hyper focused when something grabs your attention, and you know this, it's like, yeah, you can be kind of dull and in your own head or whatever, but when something grabs your attention, it's like you suck all the air out of the room, everything about that, like you're hyper focused on it, and so you see everything and process everything at lightning speed, making up anything or misinterpreting it. They did in this study is of 1,000 people that they did this poll. Well, no, that's a different poll. No, they did more than that. Anyway, they found out, as going backwards. Okay, they, classified them. Have you seen a cryptid, ghosts, UFOs, whatever? And then they went back into the history and found that there were a higher number of people in that group that were ADHD, depressed, or had dissociative problems. And so, they're like, well, there could be a correlation. Well, there also could not be, because the vast majority of the world right now suffers from some kind of depression or anxiety or something. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And so, to me, it's not a study that I would necessarily say is, I'm like, whatever. But that's the world's answer. Okay, that's the scientific answer. Just so y'all know, I don't agree either, at all. But now I don't, and they didn't differentiate between, if you're depressed, you see UFOs or whatever. I don't know. They just said these are the problems that they saw. Now, then we come to, all right, let me take a mini poll. There's not a whole lot of you in here right now. But, like, if you've ever had any kind of paranormal experience, like you've seen a cryptid, you have had a ghost encounter, any kind of, let's broaden it a little bit, a prophetic dream, you dreamed something and it came true, anything that is not per se normal, put a 1. Comment in the comments, put a 1. If you have never had any paranormal experience, put a 2. And I'll give you just a minute.
One's in chat for paranormal activity. I think
I'm going to put a 1 in there.
um
Hello, Michelle. Hello, Paul T.
I think the biggest issue is the time that we're in, because all, like, anyone who I'm trying not to be too, like, outlandish, I guess, with the things, and I don't want to ramble for too long. But the simple fact is, like, if you go past, like, the last few thousand years, as far as, like archaeology, other ancient civilizations, things like, of course, what's the deal with Stonehenge? There's another place, Göbekli Tepe, that's very old, that has like the thing you've all heard stories like, how did they make that rock go there? It's too big. We can't do that now. How did they make it that shape? How did the pyramids? They're all so perfectly cut. But then everyone's like, it's probably the wind or my imagination or something. Anyway, what's going on Facebook today? Like the problem, there's so much evidence towards like, okay, there was something here before us, before this current age, that was different, that was significantly different, and everyone writes it off. And then they have these studies like, the mentally distressed, they just start singing ghosts and stuff. It's crazy, man. They need some help, But the thing is that it's those same people who are like refusing to look at evidence. And then on a broader scale, there's things that like we actually have evidence of, like extraterrestrials, things that the government released. And people are like, yeah, well, what do you know? Anyway, what's going on Facebook? Like, I think the problem is that it's too upsetting, because what do you do with this information? What do you do with the information that aliens exist? What do you do if ghosts are supposed to be real? What do you do with any of this cryptid stuff, and then the other half, so half of the people are afraid, and the other half, unfortunate as it is, look to these spiritual events as a way of escapism. The same reason that people play video games for a long period of time is they want to look and they want to see like, oh, there has to be a world outside of this world because this world sucks. And I think that's also dangerous. I think that you need to be able to be comfortable where you are and then see things that, I don't know, be skeptical, but also be willing to believe. But not just because it makes the world more fantastical. I think is where a lot of this, like, I think like a lot of that, like, people with dissociation or ADHD see these kinds of things. I think that's the thing that they're pointed at. The scientists who are discovering or looking at this, they're like, these people are looking for a way out or for a way for things to make more sense. And a lot of the time that could be true. But just as often, people who are neurotypical are looking for a way for things to not be real. They're looking for a reason for things to be very straightforward and very simple because they can't process or handle that information.
That's true.
Linda
Kay thinks you have a mesmerizing voice. He really does. Buddy. He really, really does. Yes, I agree. It's a filter,
actually.
No, it's not.
Like this. This is my real voice. Here, let me turn the filter back on. It's AI generated.
There we go.
No, it's not.
That's normal. Yeah.
No, it's not.
Over here on my soundboard.
No, it's not. But I think one of the reasons that we see more stuff now, I think it for the same reason that Hiawatha says we've been dumbed down by our devices. Yes, but because we have these devices, we also we catch more things, Now I know there's a lot of stuff. If you watch TikTok and whatever, they have a lot of paranormal TikToks and stuff. Most of it, I would say the vast majority of it, I look at it and I say, that's crap. That's not real. That's staged. But there are some things interesting, and I think we catch them a lot. And so, all right. There was a lot of people in here who have had paranormal experiences, and when y'all say, "What if you've had one?" You therefore believe in them. I mean, even if you didn't before, when it's completely unexplainable, or you've seen something, you don't have any choice but to say, "Yeah, there's something else." And somebody brought up, was it Hiawatha? Somebody brought up, you were involved in a paranormal situation involving keys. Remember that?
Oh,
yeah. Tell us that one.
Okay, so I want to preface this by saying that I think I've written off anything paranormal that's happened to me as a mistake, or I didn't experience I didn't see this correctly. So I'm not entirely sure that I believe what happened.
Okay, but I was there, and so was
because I think it's important to be skeptical because that's the only way to weed through mystical, vague information, right? Like, like if you
Well,
believe
yeah.
everything that you ever think you saw, then you live in a world that doesn't make sense. And you, even if you're mentally very stable and none of this stuff shakes you, you still end up with this weird foundation of things you're like, I don't know how to explain it. Whereas otherwise, if you just be like, I probably saw that wrong, I'm probably a dummy, you know. A
Okay,
little
so
touch
then
of
you tell the
humility.
story how you remember it, since
So
you've tried to put it out of your head.
how I remember it, um, I barely remember it. I
You came here.
I came
Okay.
I came to the
Yes.
house, and I wasn't living here yet, but I stayed for a day or something.
No, what you okay. Let me preface this, because the actual event, I'll let you tell that. You came over to see the house. You had not we had moved in, but you had not seen the house yet. And you came over and you stood outside. Look, y'all, I have the craziest house ever. But you stood outside of Evelyn Cottage and you told her how beautiful she was and how amazing and how unique, blah, blah, blah. And you said, yeah, because I said, please do. I mean, I wanted you to. And so you're like, okay, I'll think about it. And I said, why don't you just, why don't you stay the night and just see how it feels? I warned you it was haunted. I said, see how how you adjust. And you said, no, I'm going to go back to where you were living. You said, I'm going to go back home for the night. And, we'll see. We'll see. Well, you had gone out to dinner. And you always put your keys on your floorboard. Of course, it's safe where we're at in the neighborhood. But you always put your keys on the floor. You would leave them on the floor of your car and just so you didn't carry them around in your pocket or anything.
That doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound right at all.
Yes, you don't remember you doing that?
I don't ever put my keys on the floorboard. No, for as long as I remember, I've always had my keys on a what is it called? A carabiner. They're
No,
on mine now.
not when you had the
Civic, yeah.
the Civic.
It was on a carabiner.
Well, no, they were in the floor because you used to do it. Now, you didn't do it before we moved in this house because it wasn't safe to do that. But you had put them on the floorboard, or that's what you told me. You said I put them on the floorboard, which I thought you did because we went out to dinner. That's what happened. We went out to dinner and we came back. And so anyway, you went out to the car. You were going to leave. The keys aren't there. So, me and your brother and your sister and you, we tore up the house. We looked all through the yard, leading out to the car, looked all over the place, everywhere, and there were no keys. No keys, no keys, no keys. And you had an extra set. I think my mom had an extra set that she was keeping for you. And so, you said, I said, I can take you to, get those and bring you back. And you're like, no, I'll just stay for the night. So you ended up spending the night. And then the next morning, because I had two men here, I was like, hey, I need you to help move stuff around. So we had everything pulled out in the living room. And we were trying to decide where things could go. We had looked for your keys again in the morning, in the daylight. No keys. And so we're all standing there in the parlor, deciding on where we're going to move this furniture and how we're going to get it from one place to another. Then do you remember what happened?
From my recollection, I had set my keys somewhere in the living room, like on the piano or something, and they were gone. I remember that. What I feel like I remember is having set my keys somewhere in the house, and then they were gone. I could not find them anywhere. And then we were moving things around, and I think the thing that was like the crux of this whole story is that we were moving things around, and then I decided that at some point I would just move into this room that I'm in now. And I was moving things around, and then I think I had moved the final thing out of the way. And then as soon as I did, I finished it, I heard keys hit the floor somewhere.
On the stairs. They hit the stairs. Behind me. They hit the stairs.
yeah, they hit something. Like I heard keys falling, and I went and found them, and they were on the floor. Um, I think the thing about that is like that you could say is paranormal is that like at that present moment, I wasn't moving anything. There wasn't any vibration being caused. We weren't stomping around. If I'd set them somewhere and they were like jiggling or whatever, it didn't then push them over the edge because we had
And we hadn't
stopped
moved
moving.
anything from that side of the room that they could have fallen off of. We were moving the china cabinet into the from the living room into the dining room,
Right.
and so we were
So
all just standing there.
so briefly retold, my recollection of the story was that I had come to check out the house, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna move or whatever. And then the house stole my keys because I couldn't find them anywhere. And then I had decided later that I would just
Yes,
move in.
yes,
And
actually,
then
yes.
once
I
I
forgot
did
that.
that, once I did that and I had either had just begun the process or just finished the process of getting things ready, that's when my keys fell from somewhere and hit the floor, and that's when I found them. If it fell, so like theoretically, the story is that the house withheld my ability to leave until I decided to stay, and then it gave my keys back or something like that.
It
But
truly it was right after you had said, because we were standing in the parlor and you were talking about, yeah, I've decided to move in. You did good during the night, no bad feelings or anything scary, and you're like, okay. Not that I think that really scares you anyway, but
no, I, I, I don't know. It's just weird, because then I think back into my memory. I'm like, do I want to live in a house that thinks it can, like, tell me what to do or whatever?
well, the thing of it is, and I've lived in places that are haunted. I, well, I have legit lived in places that are haunted, but I think I'm a little bit haunted too, so it really doesn't matter. But it's worse if I move into somewhere that has an issue. This house, I don't know what to call it. I've never, of all the, and I've lived a lot of places, y'all, in my lifetime, lots of places. I've never met a house, and I say met, I've never met a house that you feel like she's alive. Everything. You just feel like she's an entity. And, and she's a good entity. There are some bad ones that show up occasionally, but not so much anymore. And so it's weird. It's like everybody gets that feeling that comes here. It's like, yeah, it's like she's alive. It is a weird experience. But yeah, it was the first time, and I think the only time that she has ever insisted that somebody stay.
Yeah. How about that? Has the house treated me well since? Yeah. It's just that's the last, like, I guess, like physical interaction or anything like that. Anything else would be like in my head. Um, but yeah, I mean that's the only story, And then like from like we do live in a wooded area,
Yes, we do.
so I don't know what that has to do with it or what.
Yeah,
But
tell us what that means, Hiawatha. It's not like a forest. I mean, we're rural, but I have 4 acres, and except for right where the immediate house is and stuff, it's all woods. Like I can't even go back there. It's just woods.
true, the yard itself has a lot of trees as well. The house is surrounded by
Yes,
trees.
yes, lots of trees and bushes. Uh,
Um,
so, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So, but I mean, obviously, so that, like that's a fun story, right? But then, like, to be as rational as possible, I literally could just say, like, they fell. I set them somewhere, forgot where they were, and then they fell. So it's one of those things. It's like I guess it's the dichotomy of the two choices. So I get to say, like, is it supernatural or is it just like happenstance? But that's why, right there. Which I have a video I've pulled up on my screen here. I was thinking I might share with you if you wanted to play it at some point. It's
yeah.
not
Well,
like it's not a ghost video, but it is a uh and there's a story. It's an extraterrestrial video, and there's a short little story about it and everything. But so there's a line that I draw basically within my mind. That's like, I really, really try to poke holes in stories that I hear, and I try to poke holes in the character and the psychology. Like, is this person someone who would be more likely to fabricate a story or to conjure up an experience and stuff like that? Because if there are actual paranormal activities or actual anything of the sort, it's very critical to be able to sort through what is true and what is likely untrue. And I think from my experience, I spend the most time worried about people who don't, who don't write off like, yeah, that's probably just my imagination or whatever, but who are more inclined to just believe anything that happens. Because I think that's more dangerous, especially if this world, if those things do exist. I think it's very dangerous to be like, whatever I saw is what happened, So, but then there are things that I'm like, I can't deny that is 100% true. And then,
Okay, I just found where you sent me that video. Let me change this. Hold on, why are my options not here? What is going on? Okay. Hold on, let me change. I can't even change a setting because I can't get there.
yeah,
Oh, wait. There we go.
Seeing is believing. And I think that's the thing, is that like, just like Mom was mentioning earlier, like, eyewitness accounts are literally the least credible source of, and so like seeing is believing. Yeah. But like the mind is fickle. Eyes are fickle, beliefs, everything. It's like your eyes are not even very good at seeing, and they perceive everything upside down, and your brain has to translate it and everything. Like there's so much room for error as far as what you see, but if you can build a story around everything. So this is an interesting, I guess if we're going to jump into this, I'd like to.
Yeah, I'm going to make this. Yeah, you can keep talking. I'm going to try to make this bigger. Go ahead. Keep talking.
So I don't know what this whole thing was about. This happened in Jerusalem over the Dome of the Rock. What you'll see is a light descending from the sky, and it'll hover right above the dome for a little while. It'll flash, and then it'll shoot into the sky at a speed so inexplicably like against the laws of physics, and then just disappear. The thing is, when this video went viral at first, and all traces of the original were wiped from the internet, and then only thing that remained for the longest time was a video of like, it was so weird, the psyops, that I don't know if it was the government. I don't know who did it. But what happened is they literally overlaid like blinking red lights and like super, super cheesy effects right over this. It was originally just one video. This video here is 4 angles, but the original video was just one angle. And they superimposed like flashing red lights and goofy effects and stuff like that. So anyone who ever heard the story, they'll go to see the video and be like, well, this is obviously fake. And then they moved on. But then over time, other independent people, they actually found the different angles. So there are people like all over this area who are seeing this happen at night, and they pull out their phone and they start recording. And this is 4 angles where everything is like lined up together. And you're going to see the exact same thing happen from 4 different, like miles apart, like on separate sides, like different people with different languages and all this. You're going to see the exact same thing happen. And it blows my mind every time I see it, because the way that this object moves is against the laws of physics. It's physically impossible to anything that we could ever achieve. It doesn't exist. Any vehicle that we've created would instantly shatter. It would fall apart from the air resistance. We have no thrusters capable of this type of acceleration or speed.
Okay.
What was the purpose of the? There's so much. It's just. But yes, please observe this insane video.
Bueno, llegó la mata.
אתה מצלם? אתה רואה? מה זה?
אתה רואה?
אני רואה מה זה? תגיד, שותים יותר מדי? לא, לא.
לא, לא, כולנו רואים את זה.
מה זה? חמישה עיניים.
שיו!
יואו! מה
מה
זה?
זה, אמא?
מה זה? ראית? יואו בנברות. ראית את זה?
תראה, יש המון.
הנה, תראי שמה. מה זה?
אמא, לדור, אמא.
יש קבוצה שלמה שם, תראה.
So
יואו.
the thing is that what have you ever seen that moves like that? Like even
Nothing.
like
Nothing.
so there's all sorts of like maybe it picked up a baby or like, who knows what the purpose of it was. But so there are things, right, where there are things like that I see and I look into and I'm like, okay, this is real. I don't know what it is. It doesn't make any sense. I have no foundational knowledge to start to unpack what this could have possibly been. And then there are like, the other side of like, stuff like this where you're like, oh, I saw something in the woods. It just depends, So I guess that's what I'm afraid of is that there, the difference between things like this and like science, I think, is that scientists will have crazy hypothesis and then they have to prove it. And then that's where people say like, okay, science is definitely true and all this other stuff is just hocus pocus. But there's no way to measure events like this. There's no way to build a story about events like this because we don't have the ability to, interact or anything like that. The best we can do is look through history and take every civilization's story about extraterrestrial beings, and we can like try to combine them all and see like what facts remain consistent over each telling of the story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a situation, and I'm glad that you brought up this video because you showed it to me before, but this is exactly what I saw the night that I was going home from Lola's house, and I was driving on a country road, and you know what road I'm talking about, and I saw, because I had a sunroof and everything, it was a nice night, I had my roof open, and I saw what I assumed, because I'm driving. I assumed it was a plane that was just a little bit ahead of me, just where I could see it in the sky, because it had more than one light. It was, had a couple of lights on it, and I'm like, okay, well, there's a plane, whatever. It looked like a jet from the lights. I did not see the aircraft. So I'm going there, and for whatever reason, I'm driving and looking at this plane, which is not, I don't recommend, but I was doing it. And all of a sudden, that plane that was just, going at normal plane speed in front of me did exactly what that light did. It just went phew. And I mean, it was just gone. I saw it streak across the sky, just like that video. And it went so far ahead of me and it disappeared because it was just that fast. And then I was like, I think I pulled over on the side of the road because I was like, holy Moses, what was that? That was not an airplane, not that we build,
Yeah.
And so that's crazy. What about, okay, David Rogers, what paranormal event that took place outside a Miami mall? I didn't see that. You can, if you have a link to it, throw it up in here and I'll look at it. Let's see. Samantha says, true story. I had a landline phone conversation with a friend describing what neighbors and I saw. All of us neighbors got polite phone calls from Anonymous and were nicely told to shut up talking. Wow. Hiawatha says, I spent a lot of my life on a reservation, and the indigenous people will tell you about their friends from the sky and also their forest friends. Yeah, their forest friends, that's a whole nother story. Okay, I'll have to look at that I don't know. I guess I missed the Miami Mall video. I don't know. I will tell y'all, I live under a rock. I really do. Like I don't watch the news, and I'm so focused, and I'm usually if I'm not at work, I am researching for true crime or my ghost stories that I have on my other channel. So I rarely watch anything. Let's see. So Samantha says, well, the neighbors all talked about the phone calls and agreed to shut up. Stealth bomber came out in public 15 years later. Well, that's interesting. Man, those stealth bombers, aren't they amazing? Wow, they're incredible aircraft. Very, like, I'm just like, oh, I would love to see one. I don't think I saw one in person. I don't think so. Let's see. Oh, the guy in Canada who feeds raccoons has a video about him way back seeing a UFO. Now, I remember a video that maybe it was at the first of the year. I thought it was in Las Vegas where wasn't it the aliens video? I don't know about the raccoon guy. I'm have to look at. Like I said, I live under a rock. Yeah, it's good for the soul not watching the news, but Hiawatha, what's not good for the soul is doing true crime. What's my other channel? Let me just type it in here. There's a lot about. I've got not all of my ghost stories from this house, but I've got some. I've got pictures of the house, and all I primarily do now is tell other people's true ghost stories because that's what they like. So, it's a good break. All right. So, how are you on cryptids, Bungler? What is your feeling about cryptids? I didn't mean to put such a stress on your brain.
I have a friend who is probably 85 to 90% trustworthy, who claims he saw a skinwalker. He and
I know that
friends.
friend. I would say he's more than that trustworthy. I mean,
85, 90%, that's a lot,
Yeah.
But outside of that, I've not seen nor heard anything believable enough for me to think that,
Hi, Yoli. Well, okay. And you've heard my story. You've heard my story a bunch of times, and I'm sorry because people have asked for it, and I promised that I would tell it. Well, I'm trying to get. Where's Shay? Hello, Shay. I'm trying to get up because here's the thing. You have to remember. So let me go back, and I'm gonna try to tell this as succinctly as I can. I'm sorry, ADD. But this was back at a time that in the rural South, back in the olden days, when I was a young kid, a very small kid. And in those days, I don't even know I think I had heard that there was such a thing that people had on their TVs as cable. But for most of rural Alabama, we were poor, like poor. And, we had the 3 stations and the antenna up outside of your house where, you have to adjust it and the wind blows too hard. All your TV goes off and you have to, anyway, you got 3 stations. That was it. ABC, NBC, and CBS. That's all you had. And, cartoons were only on Saturday mornings. And so you didn't have documentaries and, You didn't have the internet. You didn't have even books and stuff about cryptids. So you have to understand that's my background. That's my mindset. Were there paranormal activities in my life already? Yes. Yes. Even though I was a small kid. But as far as cryptids, I didn't know, I may have heard somebody refer to a Loch Ness monster or something. I had no idea what that was, whatever. So we lived way, way back in the holler. All right. It was a dead end. Our landlord had 1,000 acres. And she had 1,000 acres at the bottom of a mountain in the back of a holler. That's what we say here in Alabama. They're not hollows. They're hollers. And in the holler, there were some pastures, cows, whatever. But a lot of it was just... it was mountains. All right. The mountain actually started out our back door. About 20 feet out the back door, you started going up. Now, I'm an only child. And so my parents, they always just treated me like an adult. I mean, probably not the best way to be raised, but it made me very independent. So I had a mini bike. We lived close to a lake. I would hop on my mini bike. I would go to different places. I had this one little place. It was a spring. There was like a little spring, and it went under the road into the cow pasture. And on the other side of the cow pasture was the slough part of the lake, the backwaters. And so I would pack a lunch. I'd eat breakfast. I'd tell my mom I'm going wherever. I'd pack a lunch. I'd get on my mini bike, and I'd be gone all day. I did not come back until nighttime. So I spent so many days out in the woods. Just, I'd bring a blanket, whatever, bring a radio, bring some books. That was me. So many times I would hear like something crashing through the woods. And even though I didn't have any close neighbors like that had kids, there were some on down the road, and I always just thought it was the boys in the neighborhood that lived on down, and I would hear, and I would think they were, I would think they were spying on me, just trying to scare me. You know how kids are. And I would hear stuff, and it would start further, and then I would hear it crashing, and as it got closer, I would hear not just little twigs snapping, but it sounded like, the sound of a big tree branch breaking. And it's very loud, and you can tell. And so it would come so close sometimes, and I'd be looking, and I'd be like, I have to be able to see them. I figured I knew what couple of boys it was, and I never did. And I'm like, how could they be so close and me not be able to see anything but trees and bushes? So, this happened time after time, and I would start screaming at what I thought was the boys. Where are you? I know it's you. You don't scare me. Leave me alone. Whatever. And there would never be an answer, and I would hear it eventually go away. One time, I was there with a friend, and we were sitting out. We had a picnic going on and all this. We heard the same thing. She heard the same thing. And then it was, as it got closer and closer, there came a smell. I cannot describe the smell to you. I've never smelled it before or since, and I'm a nurse. I've smelled everything. The closest I could say, it smelled like severe body odor, but it was sour. It was a very sour, putrid body odor. Stank. It didn't stink. It stank. It was a stank. And it was so bad, we couldn't stay in our picnic area, and we had to go across the street. And so we start yelling and screaming, because at this point, both of us knew this was not the boys, okay? I was wrong. This crashing through the woods was not possible, and my friends didn't stink, And so it was really weird. As we started screaming and doing a lot of, hooping and hollering and moving around. Eventually, the smell dissipated, but it was probably there in our presence for about 10 minutes. Like we couldn't even go back to, So I never said anything. I just, it was just like something isn't right here. Well, fast forward to, I think it was the weather was starting to get cool, so it was either spring or fall. And living back in the holler, we only went to the store, like the grocery store, because it was about, 10 miles or so away. We went once a week, if that. And so we came, we left in the afternoon, but, it was an outing. Country folks, we make a day of this. So we probably left the house about 3 o'clock, but when we came back, it was dark. And so we had the back of the house had a carport, and my bedroom was right on the back. And then, like I said, the mountains started right on the other side of the carport, maybe 7 feet. And there we had like rocks that were like shelves. They were big flat rocks. And I don't know if you're ever been out in the woods. These, I don't know what they're called, what kind of rock they are, but it was like a really huge rock that was on the flat side and another one just like it on top. And I would say they were probably about 7-8 feet across and about 3 or 4 feet, probably about, yeah. Because I used to play on them. I used to jump from one to the other. And, I was a kid. I didn't have TV. I had an imagination. And so, it was my living room. It was my kitchen, whatever. So, we pulled up in the house. And when I got into the house, I realized that the other window in my bedroom faced this huge tree. It was like 150-year-old oak. And there was something about that tree that just scared me. I hated to look at it at night. And so I realized, my bedroom's open and that big scary looking tree is going to be right there. So I go in the house while my parents are getting groceries out of the car. And I stood up on my bed. And back in the day, like we had like those funky little hooks they're almost pointed. They're not round. And I thought, I've got to pull my curtains together because I don't want to look out there and see the scary tree. Because, like I said, I was very young. I was about probably 7 or 8. And as I was, now we had a full moon that night. And so the yard was pretty bright. And I'm looking, I get on top of my bed. So I'm probably about 4 feet tall, 4.5, something like that. I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm a short person now. So, but I got up on top of my bed and I was trying to pull my curtains together without looking out the window, and they got stuck at the top. And so I finally got it to where I thought it could close, and I had the curtains about this much on either side, and I was about ready to close them, and I saw something outside my window, about 5 feet away from my window. And I froze. And I couldn't tell you how many seconds I stood there. 15, 20, I don't know. But what I saw was a Sasquatch. Now, I didn't really know what a Sasquatch was at this time. But I saw this thing that was taller than me on top of my bed. All right. So I'm looking at least 6 feet or more of me. This thing was significantly taller, and it was very, very close to my window. And the moonlight was behind it, so I could see the outline and the details on the outline really well, but I couldn't see the face because the face was in shadow. But what was so weird about this thing is it was just standing there staring at me, and I'm staring back. And the thing that I noticed is that its head was so bizarre. It was like a cone shape. I had never seen any animal with a cone-shaped head. And its shoulders were very square and broad. And you could see the hair on it, like you could see long hairs. And I could tell that it was muscular, but it was if you look like a bodybuilder and you covered him in hair, you get the idea, even though you can't see the muscles. And so I'm standing there staring at this thing. It's staring back, and I am just frozen. And I keep looking at it and keep looking at it, and I don't know what to do because I know that my parents are about to go back outside, and this thing is out there, and I am just frozen. However many seconds, whatever, however long it was, I stood there. I finally came back to, okay, I gotta do something, and I shut the curtain, and I was terrified to go outside, so I could still hear them in the kitchen, and when I realized at that point that they had got everything in, so I was like, because at first I was like, I need to tell them, like, I don't want this thing to eat them, whatever. But I realized they were okay. So I tried to settle down and think, that was crazy. That was crazy. I didn't see that. I mean, I knew I saw it, but you just want to put it out of your head. And so I didn't say anything to my parents. I didn't think they'd believe me. I mean, I barely believed me. And so I didn't say a word. Time passes, and we had a visitor from Spokane, Washington, and he came and he stayed with he was a friend of my dad's. He stayed with us for about 3 weeks, and because it was a tiny house, he took my bedroom, and it was summertime, and so we didn't have no AC. There was no central back in those days. You just lived with it, okay? And it was hot. And so you had to have the windows open. And he got up one morning and he told my mom that he would sleep in the living room from now on and I could have my bedroom back. And she's like, why? And he said, because something is out there on those rocks that are just outside my little play area. He said, there's something out there pounding on those rocks. He said, I don't know what it's doing. It's breaking stuff up, whatever. It's just, he said, it sounds like it's got one huge rock pounding on another. And he said, it goes on and on and on all night. And he said that those rocks are just a few feet from this window, and he would not sleep there. Now, fast forward to maybe a year and a half after I saw this, on one of the 3, stations, there was a documentary about Sasquatch. So, there ain't nothing else to watch. That's what my dad wanted to watch, so that's what we watched. And as I watched this documentary about Sasquatch, I realized all of the things, the cone-shaped head, the shape of the body, the hair, the smell, the everything, the crashing through the woods, but people never see it. I realized, oh my God, this is what I've been experiencing for the last couple of years. And so my mom, when I told her what I had seen, she admitted to me that there were a few times that she was out getting laundry off the line after dusk, and she could hear something in the mountains come very close, snapping huge trees. She said it wasn't branches. She said, I thought, is there a cow loose? But what would a cow be doing in the mountains? If they get out of the fence, on down the road, they're not coming up, what I'm saying. But she said, I knew whatever it was that big. And she left her laundry and came running in the house. Now, she didn't tell anybody. I think she may have told my dad there's something out there, but he didn't care. He wasn't paying attention. But, it all started to make sense after I saw the documentary. And then I was like, yeah, when they showed pictures, what is that, the Patterson film? And I had never seen the Patterson film, of course, before that documentary. And I told my mom, I'm like, oh my God, that looks exactly like what I saw, except I couldn't say that was the face because I didn't see a face. So there you go. There is my, I've never seen another Squatch, although I have been Squatch hunting, and I have seen evidence of what I believe was a Squatch in the area, but I've never actually seen one since then. So, Brain?
that just makes me wonder, like, what their prerogative is. What do they exist for? Where do they exist? How do they procreate? Do they live hundreds of years? Do they, like, it makes me ask all these secondary questions that, like, I don't know if I'll ever have an answer to, but it's not that, like, there's not really even any part of the story that I don't believe. It just makes me wonder, like, so why then? Why was it, interested in you? Why was it hanging around? Why?
I don't know.
What did they do? Do they, like, all of this?
I mean, I wonder if it hung around me just because I was in the woods all the time. Now, just the house that we lived in the holler was kind of up on a hill a little bit, and then you went down. There was a big creek that ran beside the house, and right, like, just at the bottom of the hill, there was a cave, and you weren't supposed to go in it. But I went into the entrance one time, but it was, I think now when I go to that area, there's big signs all over there. It's dangerous. Don't go in there. I don't know if part of it caved in or they just don't want people there because they know what's there. But I figured after I saw, that's probably where he hung out, which was not very far from the house, nor was it far from the other creek that I used to go to. So I'm like, well, that makes sense. Maybe because I'm the only person in probably in the neighborhood beside the boys that actually hangs out in the woods all the time.
Is there an ecosystem of, like, I don't know. I just wonder, like, do they fear us because we destroy everything? Do they not? Do they hide because, they're smart enough to recognize that we'd wipe them out? If they are smart enough to do that, how come they never competed with us in technology race? Or do they live long enough to, like, there's just so many unanswered questions. There's so many things that I just wonder about situations like this, like the story, like I'm not wrapped up in, like, the fantastical aspect. I'm just wrapped up in, like, all these unanswered questions that I have. Are there more of them? Do they have a community? Do they procreate? How long do they live? Why would they be near humans? Do they avoid humans? Why do they avoid humans? Are they related to other potential cryptids? Is there an ecosystem of cryptids interacting with each other in an animal kingdom that is, like, unseen to humans, as we are now? How do we not see more of them? I mean, do they live underground? Does every cryptid live underground? Are they interdimensional? Do they, we have, topographical, like, we can see everything all the time for the most part. Okay,
like, well, let
where
me
does
answer
everything
some
stand?
of those. Some of those questions. They do procreate. People have seen young and baby Sasquatch. A lot of people say they're interdimensional. And somebody here, Samantha, was saying Nephilim. I mean, I don't know. Could they be part of that whole Nephilim human breeding cycle? I don't think they really want to interact, although some stories have said that there are Sasquatch who are, most people say they're like humans in that there are good ones and there are bad ones. Like, there are ones that will harm you to death. And there are other ones who will play games, like, play with you, throw things. Now, I have had this happen in the woods, where I'm just standing there and all of a sudden something is thrown, close by, not at me. I never felt like it was thrown at me, but thrown close enough that it goes, and then it's like a rock or something, and you're like, where did that come from? You're looking around, you think somebody's there just, messing with you. That has happened. And they say that some Squatch do that, but, there's so many theories and questions. The thing of it is that a lot of people, and I understand why it's hard to, photograph a Squatch, because they do, all the times that I heard them, that now I know that's what I was hearing. I'm looking. You can tell distance when something big is breaking next to you, and just the loudness of the sound. And like I said, I thought it was the boys in the neighborhood, and I'm like, they're so close. Why can't I see them? Like, you can't hide. Like, there's nowhere to hide. It's, nowhere to hide. Where are they? So how does, I don't know.
The thing that, okay, let me ramble. I'm just get ready. I'm gonna ramble for a short minute. All right.
Okay.
There are reasons that I believe in extraterrestrials with capabilities far above our own, and there are reasons that I don't believe in a lot of the things like cryptids. Anytime that we're presented with a conundrum like this, where, okay, we can agree they exist. Sure. Can we agree what kind of powers they have, what their technology is like, what their anything like that? The difference, I think, is that when it comes to extraterrestrials, first of all, there's a lot of evidence, not just in, let me try to be a little bit faster. We have Area 51 evidence. We have people coming out and talking about their experience there, whether some of it's true or false or fake or true or whatever, sensationalism or not. We also have stories of, other people. I've watched interviews with several people who claim to have had interactions with aliens. And even if I believe like 1% of it, you can stretch across all of these different stories and you can find a lot of common denominators. You can also look back into these ancient texts and stuff like that, and you can find common denominators that match up with the common denominators of people who are talking about it in the more recent, past 100 years or so. You can find, examples of extraterrestrials. You can find examples of like how the pyramids were laid out and how they point towards specifically a star where some of these extraterrestrial beings claim to have been from. It's a C word. I forget the name of it. You can look back and you can see like, you can see that there are cone head shaped people who had highly developed pineal glands, and that it was theorized that that's how they were able to move or alter matter in a way that we can't physically do with even a team of cranes or things like that. You can also look back and see in history where humans were so infatuated with these cone head shaped people that they would wear rings on their skulls to help shape their skulls into this cone shape so that they could also develop their own pineal glands. You can also look back and see where the Smithsonian literally destroyed hundreds and hundreds of cone-shaped skulls right after the Darwin's theory of evolution became more mainstream, because they wanted to have more like historical accuracy lining up with this theory of evolution, and they destroyed hundreds of these skulls. And you can look back and you can hear stories about, the people of the Area 51 where I think it was 3 different accounts where they talked about the craft that had landed there and how it was actually controlled using the power of consciousness, where the control panel was simply a place where you laid your hands and then you steered the vehicle using your willpower, essentially. And you can look at where there were talks of developing 0-point energy, and you can look at physicists trying to redefine how we understand physics, and you could see where 0-point energy would actually originate from and how it actually interacts with the fabric of reality, and the ebbing and flowing of reality itself creates energy from which you can pull an infinite source from, meaning that if you were an alien with access to 0-point energy and you could create a craft that could withstand the force of this type of infinite energy movement, you could see like, okay, these stories where these crafts move at inexplicable speeds could literally be designed with the idea of infinite energy, not requiring oxygen and thrust to be able to lift itself from the ground, but an infinite energy source wherein the only threshold to movement would simply be the craft itself, or the ability of the craft to withstand that kind of pressure. Basically what I'm saying is there's an entire network of things that I can connect to see like, okay, this is why extraterrestrials are real. This is how all this stuff can be explained and described. This is how it can operate. This is where the science would come from. This is where the sociology of these alien type creatures, like how this could fit. You could hear stories where some people say that, Earth is quarantined from extraterrestrials and that they're not allowed to come here. But then there are also like some scientist type aliens who come and inspect different areas of the earth, and you can look, and maybe it's just because there's more stories about it, right? But here's the thing: at the end of the day, when you look into the other direction about things about cryptids, everything that I hear is speculation, unfounded, unbased, just guessing. And then it's like, there's a term for this. It's like, I don't understand it. So I have this blanket umbrella statement that would essentially solve everything. Like, they must be interdimensional because I can't see them. Or, I'm not saying that's not what you're saying. I'm saying that this is typically how that pattern goes. You know what I mean? Like, there are with cryptids and things of this nature, people often are just willing to be like, they could be X, Y, or Z. And it doesn't line up with anything else. We don't have any stories. We don't have any feasible, anything to really latch onto to build a network where we could believe that this is real. We only have hearsay stories every now and then split up, and stuff like that. Whereas on the other hand, with extraterrestrials, there's a lot of different stories. There's a lot of different historical examples. There's just a lot of information in general. Even if 80% of that information is garbage, 20% of a ton of information is enough to build a network of thinking to say, this is what is within the realm of feasibility. So when it comes to stuff like this,
there are some tangible things. You have, there have been hairs that have been recovered that when they send them to the lab, it's, all it comes back is no known creature. We don't know what it is. It's not a bear. It's not a mountain lion. It's not, a fox, whatever. It's an animal hair. We don't know what it is. There's a lot of those. Of course, you have the footprints, that are in places that nobody's going to go, especially when it's on private property. Nobody's out there just, making fake footprints. So, I mean, you're right. There's not a whole lot, not like there is UFOs, but there are some tangible things, to go with that. But it's just and this is why a lot of people, I'm beginning to hear more and more that they think they're interdimensional creatures. I don't know, because here's the thing. Even at a young age, like I said, I already had paranormal experiences, but that was because, and y'all know, I've talked extremely limited on when we're talking true crime, especially in the Delphi case when we're doing all of the Odinist and, ritualistic stuff. It triggered me. I couldn't do that one by myself. I had to have a couple of friends come on to read all of that on the Frank's motion because it triggered me so bad. So those who don't know, let me put the dumbed down, extremely vanilla version of this that said, when I was very, very young, I had horrible experiences with, we'll just call it witchcraft. And so in that, I believe that it opened a spiritual door. Maybe I don't like the term third eye. I know that's what a lot of people call it because I'm a Christian and I call it a prophetic gift, but I already had experiences. So not with cryptids. This to me that I saw outside my window didn't look like a interdimensional thing. It looked like a real creature because I could see so much of the details of the physical, the hair, the moonlight on the hair. You know what I'm saying? So, but was I predisposed to see it because of the other things that I had experienced? I don't know.
My guess would be yes. My guess would be yes.
Let me, while you're thinking, Rabbit, I would love to hear your story. I'm trying to read, but I can't keep up with the chat.
Yeah, I was looking through Rabbit and what he was, or they were saying, and I was kind of enamored or fascinated. I was trying to see what all the
I would love
what
for
the whole story
you to,
was about.
Yeah, if you ever want to come on, I mean, you don't have to show your face. If you ever want to come on and talk about it, let me know. And if you ever want to come on panel, and if you don't, I'd love for you to just email me your story, And I would like to know. If you don't want me to share it, I won't share it. But I would like to, especially since it was in Alabama. Wow. Yeah, and I'm going to go back when this is done and digest all of this stuff that you're talking about. But yeah, I would love to hear your story. And Shay, okay, there's another one. Yeah, y'all, I would love. Let me show this one. Well, chat moves too fast. Yeah, I would love to hear your stories. Because here's the thing, I feel like sometimes when I hear people interviewed, most of the interviewers are okay, but a lot of times when you are trying to tell a story, you get somebody who they're polite, but you can tell they're like thinking, oh my God, this is this person is insane. And when you have an experience, it's hard to talk about it because whatever it is real to you. I'm not saying it's not real because I 100% believe that my experience was real. But, it's like when you talk about it to people who have never experienced anything, you're always on guard. Are they going to laugh at me? What? Because people do. I mean, let's just be honest. People can be mean. And I love to hear. I've never had a UFO experience. Other than the plane that I obviously wasn't a plane, but I've never had anything else happen. Had a glitch in the Matrix, but that was very paranormal. Where I was transported. I guess that's the best way to say. I don't know if it was a transportation or what. It was interesting. 2 ears, 1 mouth. It's hard to believe when they inevitably interview the village nutbag. Well, you know what? Here's the thing, is when we all feel like the village nutbag when you're telling somebody stuff, and it's easier on my other channel when I'm talking about ghost stories because I think ghosts are more acceptable. They're more socially acceptable than cryptids. And UFOs.
Which is weird because I believe in ghosts significantly less than I believe in any of the other things that we've talked about. So, wait.
I mean, I don't know. See, I think I don't understand UFOs because I've not really had that experience, but I've had enough other experiences to know that things outside my conception, my mind exist.
And I think one of the problems that I have is that I never had like an experience like you guys are talking about. Like I've never had like a totally fantastical type of thing, like. And I don't know, maybe that's my place in the world is to like not have those things and try to look through it or something. But maybe it's why I'm so skeptical about everything. It's definitely it's definitely a possibility that the reason I am so skeptical is because all I ever get is hearsay and then trying to connect the dots.
Yeah. Well, it's hard, and there are some things that brain, that I will never talk about.
Yeah.
But in those experiences, I would say that I even doubt myself. I mean, I don't, but I do, because it's like I know what happened. I saw what happened. And, I have PTSD from what happened. But yet, when you try to explain something like this to somebody, you're going to come off as a nutbag. Because people cannot understand that these kind of things do happen and are possible. So you just don't talk about it. You just don't. It's just like, some people on this planet would know that it's absolutely the truth, but only because they've seen it. And even to talk about Sasquatch, it's it used to be more out there. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that are coming forward and saying that, they've seen things and just like UFOs. But I think too it's because of social media. I mean, yeah, you have some people that make up stuff, but now you have a collective group of people where back when I was a kid, nobody was talking about this. There wasn't, you couldn't share a story like that because nobody else was experiencing it, it seemed like. But yet people all over the planet were experiencing it, but we couldn't collectively come together and share stories and say, oh, okay, yeah, this is my thing. I wanted to play for you because this is interesting, and I'm only going to play a little bit because it is probably copyrighted. But this has to do with Sasquatch but something else that you, and I really want, I know you've told this story before, but I want you to, let's see, and go to something different. But I want you to tell it again because it's really what this woman is saying. And, all right, let me get back to where I can play this. Okay, now this woman is this is called Sasquatch Theory. And again, Hiawatha, thank you I didn't watch all of it. I watched about an hour and then I had to start, I want to finish it though. She had Sasquatch encounters on some family property, but then it goes from that into all these different things, and I'm like, okay, this was what was interesting. And she talks about like I said, it's really interesting. Let me just play a little bit of it though. Hold on.
In the same area, it's full of high strangeness. Absolutely full. We had an incident where I captured on video what I think to be a portal, and what my group also thinks to be a portal. It was an odd night anyway, before and after the event. But as to sum it all up, because I could speak on this for an hour just in itself. One of the guys I was with, David, I hear him talking to another guy. We were set up in a team of 4, had other teams dispersed through the meadow. And I hear David talking. Well, next thing I know, David, he's like, hey, would you look at this through your thermal to see if you're seeing what I'm seeing? Well, I'm looking through his thermal first, and I see it's a box or outline of a box. And when I say a box, it's a very large box that's putting out heat. And right beside it is a cross. It's an upside down cross with another line up above that as well. So, of course, I grabbed my thermal, and I have to find it. So I'm looking, I'm recording. I lock down on this thing, and it's actually slowly fading away by the time I get my thermal on it. I wish I could have been a little bit quicker. But he's recording. I'm recording. He's not recording. Well, this thing disappears. We radio to the other people in the group, say, hey, we've had this happen. So our team gathers in the center of the meadow, and they agree. We're like, okay, we're going to send a team into this box, or the location of the box, the cube. We had a couple members go towards the box. David and I are directing them. I'm actually still recording on my thermal. And they start walking right where this box has dissipated at, and they literally disappear off of the screen, off the thermal. I am trying to make sense of this in my mind. The only thing I'm making sense of is, okay, they've walked off into the wood line, and thermal is no longer able to pick them up.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there because I don't want to I don't want to get in trouble. I'm sure this is copyrighted, but the point of it is when she goes on and she tells the rest of the story is that David ends up, okay, he was down in the meadow going towards this box, and then all of a sudden he's up on the mountain, and like he's transported or teleported, whatever. I don't know, he's transported to the top of the mountain. And when she asked him about it, he said, I don't know how I got here, but nothing felt different. It was like I was just walking, like I just kept walking, and then all of a sudden there I was. And your friend had a experience, and when she says upside down cross, I don't know if that is a ritualistic thing because she said there was another line, or if it looked more like an antenna. I'm not sure what that means, but you had a friend who had, and you've told this story before, but tell it again for this episode about your friend's teleportation.
So I have a friend who is rather trustworthy in the sense that his mental faculties are very together. He's not the type to create sensationalist stories in his own mind, or especially not for his benefit or anything like that. And as far as I know, he doesn't ever really tell this story. He only told it when we went out to this location because he remembered it. He and a friend of his named Shadow, which is his real life name.
I think that's the coolest name ever.
I wish he was as cool a person as his name is, but anyway, just kidding. They go out there and they're just walking down this trail. It's at the state park. Now this trail is a little hidden. It's a very old trail. Towards, I think, about a mile up the trail, there's also a cemetery on this trail. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. It might. But so he's walking along this trail. He brought his guitar, and he and his friend Shadow are together. And I don't know, I want to say like half a mile up this trail. My friend, he sees some, I can't remember if he said it was like satanic or witchcraft paraphernalia. He sees a circle and the star drawn on a rock. And he says, I believe he said he saw some other things. And he just started, like, he set his guitar down at the top of the trail. So the trail is like here. He sets his guitar down, and then he has to like go down this trail, or down like a ridge to get to the thing that he saw. And he's walking down there, and he's looking around, and he said there was this overturned log, and he was walking on, and it had to be about 30 to 50 yards away from the top of the trail. I'll say the top of the trail, just the starting location. And he goes down, and he's like looking around, and he's standing on this log. And he's looking down at his feet because he's about to step off the log. And then he goes and he steps off, and he looks back up. And then all of a sudden he's back at the top of the trail, and he knows it because he's next to his guitar, and he can see where he started. Now, I don't remember what Shadow said he saw, but I do remember that this man, he literally just teleported. I don't know if it was like a safety measure, like an anti-tamper type of spell or something, but yeah, that was one of the weirdest stories I've ever heard, and I believe it pretty wholeheartedly, because the only other way for this to have happened is for him to like have like a type of seizure where he like an aneurysm, where he just completely blanks out and then turns around and walks all the way back up at the top of the trail and then stops having a seizure, right? Like that yeah. is far less believable than this other very difficult to believe by nature type of story. But yeah, so he sees this stuff, he goes to look at it, he gets pretty close to it, and then all of a sudden he's back where he started, like in the blink of an eye. Like it confused him because he went to look up at what he was just looking at, and now he's back to where he set his guitar at the top of the trail. So yeah, it was a type of portal or transportation type of thing. This is somewhat unrelated, but I have a friend at work who mentioned that his father works in some sort of intelligence. And that man has a friend who is very high up the chain, who was talking about the level of technology that they have compared to what we have access to, and that they're essentially at any point 10 to 15 years ahead of us in technology that's available to them. And this is also going to be technology that isn't limited by software or the company's desire to keep us maintained, right? Like like for example, the latest iPad has a processor that's so powerful it could never be fully used on an iPad. There's no program or anything like that that can actually use the full power of the processor. And so the same is said about all the technology that we have. Even like the latest iPhone, for example, it had something this powerful with 120 hertz display and all this super high processing power. They had that 15 years ago, but they had it in a way that wasn't locked. And he also mentioned that, and I don't know where he got this information. I don't know if it's true. I don't know what to think about it. But what he mentioned is that Apple is close to finalizing development on teleportation themselves. What that means, what that looks like, what that entails, what the physics are behind it. I don't know if it's like Willy Wonka, we get dematerialized and rebuilt on the other end. I don't know if it's going to be like, see, the thing is that what I do know for certain is that spiritual science, I call it spiritual science because there's nothing really else to call it. It's like non-physical science is all I can explain it as. It's science that has to do with workings outside of what we currently have, where we have, like I said, things like processors, electricity, motherboards and tracks that, connect everything. That's about the extent that we have right now. And we have like, electromagnetic readers, thermal readers and stuff like that. But actually like using this more spiritual aspect of things, like where like literally my friend teleported. I don't know if that's spiritual. I don't know if it's scientific. As far as my understanding of science, it isn't scientific. But then again, I don't know because I'm not a scientist.
But see, that's what, when we were talking about AI last time, that's what I said. Like, they're so far ahead of us. That's why these whistleblowers are, having come apart, because they already know the AI, and I don't want to get back into the AI debate, but, but that was just
I'll say this much. If teleportation as a form of transportation is invented, it will have to be coal powered or run on fossil fuels. Because if it isn't, it'll never see the light of day. That's all I got to say about that. And you know that alternative sources of fuel have been invented. Like in 2005, a man invented a vehicle that was able to run purely on water. And so something happened. It's not around. I don't know if that man is still around either. But our economic infrastructure is so reliant on fuels, and especially in other countries where if we were to divert, then they would start all out wars with us because of how dependent they are. I think especially Saudi Arabia, like if fuel, like fossil fuel, ever stops being the main source of energy for transportation and things like that, they literally would cease to be as a nation. It's their only export. They live in, literally a desert. They don't grow anything. They don't manufacture anything. They simply give oil and fuel away. So I think, I think that's what concerns me is that, actually, that's what I really hope aliens are alive or exist for. That's the reason, because we're landlocked. We're, the trope, everything that people talk about aliens is like one interconnected soul that all the beings share. That's like one collective thought being and stuff like that, which is wholeheartedly and inherently unattainable from where we are currently, because we are so dependent on such a specific structure that we've had since, I don't know, probably the beginning of the 1900s, that now any form of development past this is simply not allowed, because the entire world would collapse. Even if we swap from fossil fuels, not to mention the other millions of possible reasons that, things could be upturned and broken. So,
I mean, and like I said, well, back on our conversation when we talked about AI, they were talking about how other cultures, have apparently imploded on themselves, destroyed their own planets for that reason, So there you go. I want to, and Rabbit put this on the community post, okay, or I think she put it on sorry, I don't know, Rabbit. So they put it on the community post. So I'm going to tell this story, and Shay, I would love if you would send me your story, because I'm trying to read it, but I can't read it with all the chat going on. I mean, and I can read it, but I can't comprehend because, ADHD. All right, but Rabbit says, when I was a young lady, Miss Rabbit. Okay. When I was a young lady, I was awoken in the middle of the Alabama countryside for a late night joyride with my aunt, who was in ill health. We were on a mission for a late cigarette. The small road was covered with a canopy of trees, and the destination was 3 miles away. At the end of the drive, I heard a herd of deer stomp past us. Oh, sorry. In our tiny car. 20 feet ahead, in pitch dark, we are lit as like you were lit up like daylight, I guess, to our surprise, and the car dies. See, I've heard that before, that cars die when you see this light. The next second, we were past a driveway, and the music was back, full blast, and the radio had shown time passed. The deer are silently staring at us from the side of the road. I remember the cotton flying around from the breeze. Wow, so that was kind of like, maybe kind of like a little bit of a teleportation or time missing, I don't know. But I've heard that a lot, that, people are in the car listening to the radio, everything stops, it goes black, or they see a bright light, and then, they wake up like somewhere else, still in the car, but elsewhere. And then some people have reported abductions, that they remembered some details about, and then some just, remember seeing a spacecraft of some kind. But my teleportation, I don't even know. It was not really teleport. We'll have to do one on Glitch in the Matrix, because mine wasn't like that. As a matter of fact, I didn't lose time. I gained time. It was weird. I gained, the further I drove, time went backwards, if that makes any sense. And I was watching it. Me and my daughter were watching it on the car, how the time was like, we got to our destination probably 30 minutes or more before we should have, after this weird thing. But I wouldn't call that a UFO type of, alien encounter. I would just call it I don't know what the heck happened. It's a glitch in the Matrix. But now, I will say this. The people that say that and like I said, there's a lot of people that you have, and news reports where you have sightings of Sasquatch over here, and then at the same time, you have sightings of UFOs. So some people have said that they're interdimensional, and that there is a correlation between them. It seems so totally opposite to me, because the Sasquatch are so, they're in the woods, that kind of stuff, in a very real situation. I think Alan Coker had said a long time ago, I don't even know if you're still in here, Alan, but he had said that he believed dogmen were a government creation. There was that movie, the movie Dogman, that basically says that's what it is. I wouldn't be surprised. And dogmen, for those who don't know, Not the same, apparently, as werewolves. They look like werewolves. Not the same. So, well, I've never seen a dog man. They say it's terrifying. And sometimes I think I want to see one, and then most of the time I'm like, nah, I'm good. Have you ever heard of dog man, Brain?
I've heard of all sorts of things, man. I don't know what I don't, dude. I don't know. I don't know what to believe, man. You know, I haven't had any experiences with anything like this, and so it's difficult because
Was it not you, Alan? I thought it was you. Maybe it was David. Somebody said that. I'll have to go back in the chat. I thought it was you. Sorry, Alan. I thought it was you. So what were you saying, Brain?
I just haven't seen enough to know what sort of beings like this I actually believe in. I mean, there's just so many tales. I think the disconnect that I have is that there's so many things that I've heard about and so few things that I've seen, like, believable evidence of. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Skinwalkers, Wendigos, dogmen, vampires, Mothman.
I think we have a Wendigo around here.
White skin, something or another. Like, there's just infinite. There's like an infinite amount. But the thing is you don't, like, first of all, there's like no documented evidence. There's not like video, obviously. There's also not even really groups or forums that talk about this kind of thing. I mean, they talk about like different experiences and different things like that. And I don't know, to a point you could be like, okay, the government is hiding all this information, and to a degree, I'd probably agree with you. I think with AI and access to anything behind the scenes, it's possible that all of this could be limited and stuff like that. But even then, there's just not enough like conclusive evidence of the majority of these kinds of things for me to.
Now, the Wendigo has been around in Native American culture forever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I mean, there are. I don't know, man. Like, it's tough. It's tough because I don't want to get wrapped up in the fantastical. I want to believe in things that I can see being possible, and then I would like to go from there. Like, if I were going to delve into this, I would want to be able to build a similar network of belief the way that I have for extraterrestrial beings. Is I want to be able to find motive. I want to be able to find possibility, feasibility, powers. I guess we call them powers, what they're capable of, what traits they all share in between each other, what their motive is. Why do they hang around? Why do they show up? Why do they not show up? What interaction do they have? Where do they come from? What is it that they are made of? What is their purpose? That's another thing that concerns me, is that in the construction of the universe, everything seems to be driven by its own code. Gravity, spin, the circular nature of planets, even outside of gravitational pull, everything, down to our biology. How all of our cells interact in a very specific way, and then within those cells, there are self-regulatory systems that maintain the life of those cells. And then outside of that, there's the animal kingdom, where everything fits within a hierarchy and everything still has to have some harmony. And where basically the only thing that ruins any of that balance is humans and our free will. And I'm wondering, like, if that's true, then, or if these other things are true, what rules or strictures are they forced to live by where they're not able to take over the world with their supernatural abilities? Or why don't they interact more? Do they not? Are they animals? Do they have complex thought patterns, or do they not? Like, there's so much left on the table as far as like information, motive, purpose, feasibility, all of this that makes me like really frustrated to try to talk about it, because everything outside of really being able to pin like anything together, it's just like it gives me this feeling like, you know, Dungeons and Dragons vibe, where people are like, you know, I want to roll my D20 and hope I get a critical strike because I'm a rogue elf and my passive is that I can, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just like imagination. And that's what I struggle with the most, is that the difference, because this conversation is fundamentally like most weak to imagination. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but here's my question. If you don't have as much trouble believing in extraterrestrials, UFOs, that whole kind of thing, you don't have really a problem with that, but why is it more of a if it is a cryptid?
Oh, you cut out there. Why is it what?
Why is there more of a problem to believe in a cryptid than it is a UFO? Because to me, it's foreign. UFOs are foreign.
Lack of historical, not overarchingly, stories and things about extraterrestrials over even like tens of thousands of years ago until recently, everything in between. There are stories of different historical contexts that alter in between, but there are, at every stage, there are also things that match up every single time. There are so many, I don't know if it's just the volume of stories, but between that and the science that I do know, do understand, and the possibility, there's enough where I can, like I said before, I can build a network between all these different schools of thought, all these different stories, all of these different experiences, historical writings, you know, like even Sumerian texts, like like the origin of human, the origin of humans in general. There's a word that I couldn't find. All of these things, they all match up. Like even like tales about like, you know, ancient Egypt and I can't remember any of the. Oh man,
yeah, but so do the cryptids, like the Wendigos. You know.
Anyway, but there's
a lot of cryptids. There's a lot of cryptids in historical stuff. I mean, all the way back to the jackal. You know, you can't. In my opinion, you can't say, well, yeah, there's all this historical stuff for UFOs, but not cryptids, because there is.
Okay, sure, but also with extraterrestrials, there are clear signs of them being entwined in our culture, being a part of who we are and our development. There's also structures that were specifically designed to interact with these kinds of things. There are also structures that are impossible to have created without some sort of, external help. There's the problem that I have is that extraterrestrials historically have been intertwined into our culture, and they've been a part of who we are until recently, which does bother me a little bit. And that's something that I can't really quite, piece together. But as far as cryptids and all this, like the maximum amount of information that I get are like every story is the same as far as like, don't go over there. They died over there. They ate them. It's like, okay, I get that, like I understand that, like there, and I do agree that there are certainly things that are not, physical by nature. It wasn't always bears. It wasn't always that they fell off the trail and got lost. It wasn't always that they fell into a sinkhole or stumbled into a cave. It isn't always that they went delirious from dehydration. But that is so often able to be an explanatory reason as to why this happened when it comes to the stories of cryptids. On the other hand, extraterrestrials, it's not. Like, you can't be like this, the 60-foot long, several 100-ton, perfectly formed block must have fallen from the sky or been like naturally developed, or in the way that the pattern that it was laid out in, or all this stuff. Like, there's so much more talking about like the spiritual aspect of the human nature and how it can literally have been developed as a type of science to be used for different tasks and things like that could have been taught or affected or manipulated by extraterrestrials from the stories that they tell, from the hieroglyphs that we have, from all of this different stuff. And then when it comes to cryptids, it's always like I said, they died over there. I saw something scary once. You know, it's like there's not, and I'm not saying that it's wrong because of that, but it's harder to believe because there's no cultural context. There's no interaction. It's always ghost story based type telling. And I think I'm not saying that it's less true. I'm not saying that I think that you're crazy for believing it. I certainly don't. I really am interested in all this stuff. It's just harder to really grasp onto and believe as strongly because of the fact that it's always based around, that he ate that guy, or, when it also could have been a bear or anything like that,
No, I mean, but most of the cryptid stories that I hear are not, because the people that get eaten don't live to tell the tale. But most of the cryptid stories that I hear, whether it's dogmen or Sasquatch or whatever, are people like me who are eyewitnesses, and you're, eyewitness to stuff. Now people have kind of an idea, because now there's enough stuff on social media and documentaries and whatever, all these TV programs, people that, had cable back when I was a kid and I didn't. But what you're looking at. For me, I didn't know what I was looking at.
Yeah.
But even at that, cryptids come with, you also have all of these sensory things, like the sound of the trees snapping, the smell, the not just you saw something, because I know it's weird when you look at all these videos, and I've seen a lot of videos of in the distance that could very well be a squatch, but it's out there running really at a high speeds, and it's whatever. You don't have details. You don't have close-ups of it. So I get that part. But for eyewitnesses, it's not just, I saw something. Because your mind, could play tricks on you. But your ears, the whole sensory experience doesn't. It's a whole experience. So, I mean, I figure sometimes, people are just making up stories. I'm sure they do. But there are a lot of people, and then you'll find this is true. Most people who have seen a Sasquatch, you just don't break that out in conversation. Now I do, because I really don't care what people think. I'm like, I don't care. But, I said it a lot, and then, everybody in the room stops talking and looks at you like you've got 3 heads. And I'm like, yeah, for real.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't believe it less. There's just less to believe about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we just differ on that, because I do know of, a lot of people having physical evidence. They just don't know what it is.
Well, I just, and I like this juxtaposition that we're in. You're more likely to believe cryptid things, and I'm more willing to believe extraterrestrial things. And from my perspective, like I said before, it's just because there's more details to play with, to consider, to write off as true or untrue. Cultural context, historical context, motive, traces, evidence. I don't even really care about people who I got abducted. I don't take that as seriously as I do just like the overall theory, because there's so much more to consider. And so far as I know with cryptids, it's like there's not like a cultural thing. There's not, interaction with us that they've had that we can find a motive for. There's not a clear understanding of how they operate or how they have their powers or where their place is in the world, and aliens to a large extent are in that same boat where we're like, why do they do the things or not do the things that they do or don't do? Like we don't, we just don't know. But I think that with the fact that there's so much that you can see way back, thousands and thousands of years ago, that line up to things that you hear often today, and as far and their motives and everything seem to line up as well at the same time. It's different because why do cryptids exist? What do they do? What do they want? What do they crave? What do they want from us? What do they want in their own existence? Do they hide? Do they live in a different universe? Do they live in the mountains? Like at the very least with aliens, you can be like, yeah, they're from a different planet. The world is quarantined. We're not allowed to be messed with until we break the barrier or something like that, which is something I've heard from a couple of different people talking about why we don't see more alien interaction is because of that same reason. And even with the thing is it's like not Siberian or something like that. There's a planet that the foremost pyramid in Egypt points, like it sits directly under. And it is one of the stars or the planets that we named, or that has been named after one of the alien races that were here before helping build it. And there's also like a lot of different things. There's actually pyramids all over the earth. There's some in Antarctica. There's some in South America, hidden in the jungle. There's some in East Asia somewhere. But the problem is that the majority of them are swallowed up by the earth, and they're nearly impossible to see. Like the one in Antarctica, you just get the tip. The ones in the jungle, the impossible to nearly get to, and they're smaller in size. But we have the ones in Giza that are like, the desert was just big and open, so we have them and we can see them. But
the same thing happens with cryptids. When people have evidence, when they have, physical things that happen, and I think this is especially true with dogmen, but, you'll, back to the national parks and reserves and this type of stuff, when people report or they have some evidence, they turn it over, it disappears, they can't find it. The few that have kept their stuff and sent it to a private lab are the only ones who get results. The rest of the people, the park rangers or whatever, there have been a lot of people that have said, the rangers have basically said, okay, you're done, we'll take care of this. And they obviously had these reports, obviously know that there's something in these woods. So, I mean, you can say, yeah, it's a cover up too. Why are they covering it up? What is it? I don't know. I don't know what these cryptids are. I mean, I've never seen a dogman. I've never seen a wendigo. Like I said, I think we have one here. I don't know. We've got something here. But I'm not sure. But I'll tell you when we're off air, I'll tell you, because the wendigo or potential wendigo stories are very, very recent. I'm like, interesting.
EA Spots says, a few years back, a few friends and I were on a road trip. We got lost somewhere in the Blue Ridge Mountains. All four of us saw, in great detail, some eldritch horror. We speculate it was a wendigo.
What did it look like? Because here's the thing. What I saw, EA, the other day, I was just, while he was talking about the aliens, I was Googling wendigo. What I saw is not a wendigo. It has characteristics, like the other things that it does, of a wendigo, but it did not look like a wendigo. So I'm like, well, I don't know.
Someone
Can you
said,
describe it?
Someone said a minute ago, why do bats exist or why do centipedes exist? I think the prevailing issue that I have with this situation is that things like that don't live on a level of sentience that humans or the speculated, or not the speculated, but the cryptids in question live on, right? Like we have this, and maybe that's just a point, a fact of attaching fantastical theories to these not very well explored like items of interest come from, right? Like Sasquatch or like wendigos or like any of these things. Maybe they're not as sentient as we seem to think they are. But if they are, that's where I have issue, is like, why do they exist? If they have comparable sentience to us, even above like, monkeys and stuff like that, if they have, and if they don't have that kind of sentience, why are they so hard to find? Like, why are they often so hard to see? I think that's the problem, is that there's a catch-22 in either direction. Like, if they aren't sentient, then we would see them more often and they'd be much more well documented, just the same as scorpions, bats, or centipedes, or anything like that. They're easier to spot, easier to find, easier to track. If they are sentient and they are actively hiding, that creates to me a much bigger problem, as in, why do they do the things that they do? Why do they hide? What are they? What's the purpose behind their actions? And so I'm caught either way. I can't quite draw like a conclusion on either side. Sorry.
I don't know, but I love this comment by Shay Watson, and I am of the firm belief that there is such limited interaction with humans because we are not worth their time. They want to know about scorpions and cockroaches, things that survive. That is a good point. Honestly, that is a very good point. Because
I hate to be like rude and like, okay, listen, I hate to be rude and like purely disagree, but like, humans are the epitome of survival. We've literally destroyed and conquered the planet. There are areas where where we don't go, right? Like, there are areas that are still wooded and very protected and all this. But like, humans would be the most interesting species of creature on this planet, because we literally have throughout history, but especially even in the last 2,000 years, like even if only the last 2,000 years have happened, we have taken forests, we've taken unlivable areas, and we've made them livable. We've made them traversable. We've created infrastructure. We've created buildings and homes and survivability. We've used natural resources. We've literally created a chart for all the elements that exist and found a way to combine them and create other things. We have nuclear options. We are able to...
that was my point, nuclear. We have also developed a way to completely destroy ourselves. Meanwhile, the cockroaches are out here, and they're going to survive because they know better. They're out here creating nuclear power. They're going to survive.
Yeah, then why do I find them
survive nuclear.
Okay, all right. Then why do I find them in my home attempting to eat food that humans have made? Huh? Yeah. See, that's the problem. Is they don't possess that level of sentience, you know, and that's the thing. I think that's the core of the issue.
We do not have cockroaches.
Huh?
We do not have cockroaches in this house.
But you know what I'm saying is, that's where you see them often in places where food are, you know.
That's true. But ants, so, we've got ants.
Yeah. Well, anyway, but you know what I'm saying, right? Like,
yeah.
There's just a line that has to be drawn on either side. Either they aren't sentient and they aren't human-like in their ability to, problem solve and, have conversations like this, and they're not that smart. But we still don't see them for some reason. Why? Why is that we don't see them? Why is it that we're not able to study them? We have extensive research on basically every species of every animal that exists on the planet. We have biology, dissections, understanding of how their bodies work and all of that. We know that an earthworm has 8 hearts. We know that bats use, they're not supersonic. The word. They travel by sound. We know this about these animals because they're not sentient enough to hide, and we find them. But if they are sentient enough to hide, then they have to have a motive, just like humans have a motive. Humans, they first need to survive, and then they need to be able to have connection, and then they need love, and then at a certain point, they need self-actualization and achievement, and we can study that about humans because we can see ourselves. What are these cryptids after, man? If they're just hungry, why don't they eat? Why don't they just cook their own meals? But they can't. So why don't we see them? It just like it creates this conundrum where I just can't seem to understand why they exist, and it makes me.
Other things we don't cook for the bears either. They, everything finds something to eat. David Rogers says there are states in America that recognize Bigfoot and warn of the consequences of shooting one. And Hiawatha said, yeah, mostly in the Pacific Northwest. I did not know that. I didn't even know that there were states that acknowledged, yes, there is such a thing as Bigfoot or Sasquatch or whatever. So I don't know. That's the thing. They're so, these cryptids are so elusive. I say they want nothing to do with us. Honestly, I'm like, they want nothing to do with humankind. They want to be left alone and do their own thing.
What are they then, just trapped on the planet with us with a desire to maintain like neutrality or something like that?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know what
'Cause-
purpose, but what is the purpose of a raccoon? I mean, they're
survival, and they fit. And the problem is that it's survival, and they fit within the food chain. And we know what they do eat. We know what their predators are. We know how they act. We know their psychology. But these cryptids, man, like what? Okay, look, all right, hear me out. If the roles were reversed and the world was owned by cryptids, what would humans be doing if we were hiding or something like that? Would we
would
still
be
not
their
yet
servants.
See, that makes even less sense. What I'm saying is, like, would we not then be trying to establish something of our own to exist within like an infrastructure or economy or anything like that within ourselves? Or would we all be sub-intelligent cavemen who lived, in different tiny sects, but then we wouldn't even be able to procreate. We'd have no way of interacting or contacting each other. There's just so much on the table left that like there's no dots to connect. And that's what bothers me so much. Like that's just the problem. That's just the problem that I have. Why would they want anything to do with us, the most violent species on the planet? I totally concede that, right? But then why, like, what would then their reaction be? How would they create a world of their own, being able to maintain distance from us? And if they did, why would we ever see one unless it was young, underdeveloped, or trying to break the status quo or something like that? We would be able to capture one every now and then if that was the way that they interacted.
Okay, but wait a second. What if they're studying us? What if they're the ones that are the professors in the lab and they are, they don't really want to be seen. They don't want to be caught. What if just hypothetically, what if they're studying us?
Well, it would require this interdimensional theory to be true for them to be able to live simultaneously in our world and their world all the same. And in their dimension, they would have to have a world developed as strongly as ours, which means that it would be essentially two planets living in one, and they'd have to have a way to cross over. And why, again, would they do that, I suppose? And then, that's like some of the cryptids, right? That's like, you could say about some of them, but then there's no unilateral, way that they all behave across the board. You've got dogmen and mothmen, and then you have wendigos, and then you have fairies and weird, and then Sasquatch and Bigfoot. It's like if that's how they lived, they'd all have to still be able to communicate with each other, share a relatively common goal, and have some sort of socioeconomic infrastructure, even in this interdimensional parallel realm that they lived in. So I'm not saying that it's not feasible, but I want to see more information on how or why they would go about doing that, or where their origins are, you know what I mean? Like, there's just so much to unpack and dissect to really say for sure, this is where the line is drawn. This is what we know. This is what's true. At least this is how it could potentially work. And that's where the disconnect for me comes between cryptids and extraterrestrials, because at least on paper and theoretical application only, we have answers to a lot of these questions, where we don't for anything of the cryptid sort. Every story I hear only raises more questions, and it doesn't seem to answer anything, some sort of foundational. So it's annoying. It's bothersome a little bit. I'm not saying that it's not true, that they don't exist. I just don't say, brain, maybe we came after them. If 2/3 of Americans say they've had a paranormal encounter.
Yeah, I wanted to show that because I know we've been talking. I know people have to go to work, but I wanted to show you this because this is interesting. This is a complete, study. And actually, at the top of this, it talks about, well, it's not showing up on here. If you're using it you want it for business data or whatever. It's a data collection, director of survey data journalism. All right. So this poll, I thought this is really interesting. We started out with ADHD, but they don't say that here. But this is talking about, because there's some interesting things here. How many Americans have had paranormal experience? 2/3. Okay, and it goes through all these different things. Now, the ones in purple they have seen them. The ones in red, they have not. And here are the categories: feeling a presence or unknown energy, hearing an unexplained unexplained sound or music, smelling an unexplained odor, hearing the voice of someone who wasn't there, feeling an unexplained change in temperature, seeing lights or devices turn off or on without explanation, seeing an object move without explanation, seeing unexplained orbs of light, seeing a door open or close without explanation, seeing a spirit or ghost, seeing an angel, seeing unexplained smoke, seeing a demon. Okay, so these are most of the things that we're going to be talking about. I'm a yes to all of those, which is a little bit disturbing. I'm like, I read that and I'm like, okay, yeah, done that. Oh, well, I'm like, oh crap. Am I insane? You have to question yourself. Do I need to take a pill for that? But then we're going to go down there. Let's explain it. Okay. These are people who believe they have paranormal abilities, like to sense auras, to see, past events, future events, communicate with the dead. I do not recommend y'all, please. I'm just telling you right now, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Psychically see current events that you're not physically present for. So you have a smaller amount of those, all right? But then you get down into ages, by ages. Younger people, and this is kind of anyone who's 18 to 44 right now, they are more likely to believe that they have paranormal abilities than anybody 45 and older. I'm not really sure why that is. And you see it
I have
here.
a guess. I think my guess would be something to do with the psychology of humans and the way that we were able to invade what is now North America with our ships and boats parked directly on the shoreline, right next to where they lived. And they never saw us because they had never seen a boat or ship. They had never seen any of the things that we were there. It's a whole study where
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that.
If you have never seen something, you're more likely to never notice that it's right in front of you. Right. But when you're younger, your brain is a lot more malleable or undeveloped in the sense that it doesn't have hard coded lines on what is and isn't real, what is and isn't possible, etc., etc. So my guess is that people who have lived life long enough without seeing anything like this are going to hardly ever have those experiences because most likely they are having something of the sort, but they're not recognizing it because they already subconsciously have decided that those things don't exist. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I know what you're saying, especially the study about the ships. I've seen that. Interesting, David. I would love to hear your story. If you look back in the chat, I've got my email. I would love to hear your whole story. Let's see. Do you think social media has anything to do with this? As far as the ages, when we're talking about the ages of people.
That's a very difficult question to tackle because of the implications of what social media actually is. Is it the processing of information constantly that is new and unknown? Is it simply being raised your entire life, being around an electronic device whose effects on the human brain and psychology and physiology we have no way yet to conclude or determine what kind of effects they have? Who knows? There has been a study recently where ADHD tendencies are being actually developed and learned because of the age of social media being really hard on hitting dopamine receptors on repeat over and over and over. And that's creating ADHD patterns of tendency. That's something I was thinking about as I was saying all that about the ships. I think if there is a correlation between ADHD and witnessing the paranormal, it would be because people with ADHD fundamentally do not have hard-coded lines on how they think or perceive the world. Whereas if you're, neurotypical, you basically are learning very binary information as you grow up. You learn it relatively quickly. There's no secondary poking or prodding. Again, I'd like to make it very clear that the ADHD portion that people don't understand, and that is the most like the strongest aspect of ADHD, is that there's essentially another version of you always in your head speaking, just wondering about things, just going on, and it's sometimes it's muffled or whatever, but it's always there. It's dull and it's always poking and prodding, and it makes it very difficult to live in a linear fashion. And I noticed that difference significantly when I started taking higher doses of medication, where that voice fades entirely. And I've noticed over the past couple of months, I was thinking about, had I grown up and this was the mind that I was given, I would be so much less likely or able even to experience or witness anything paranormal, because it doesn't line up with the day-to-day, with the day-to-day things that I experience and see. Because how can I explain it? If you're neurotypical, 100% of the information that is filtered in is 100% of the information that you learn and sit on. But if you're ADHD, it's roughly 60 or less, because it's not only things that you're not hearing and not saying because you're distracted. It's not that at all. There's always other fantastical ideas. There's ideas, exploratory. There's just a whole world in your head that acts completely on its own. So you're receiving information this way, but it's all through a filter. For one, it's through this brainial filter. But then at the same time, the same filter is also creating worlds. It's creating scenarios. It's creating thoughts and questions, and it's poking and prodding. So only a very limited amount of information that comes in through the physical world is something that's maintained and kept. And then everything else is, it's all in the realm of like the theoretical. So if there is a correlation between ADHD and witnessing the paranormal, it would be because everything is always new stimulus. It's always new learning. And you can, as an ADHD person, you can determine yourself and write lines in the sand and say, this is what's true, this is what's not true, etc. But if you don't have that kind of discipline to control yourself and create your own lines, then it's just going to be a constant fog, and you're going to be more likely to see things like that because you're not living in a very binary world, I think. So I don't know.
Well,
But for that same reason, I think children and younger people would definitely have a higher propensity to see things of a paranormal nature, because they're yet to be so hard-coded. Their neural pathways aren't so strongly set yet, So,
what, according to that, what you were just saying, we're actually creating, let me stop this for just a second. We were talking about at the beginning how, ADHD, the hunter-gatherer, the hunters especially, you had to have all this, like our brains were wired for multiple stimulus and awareness at one time, and now we don't need it. So those of us, who have kept those traits are labeled ADHD because we fathom everything and the same. Well, we don't really, but we're aware and we're distracted by so many things because we had to be. So now, so we've had all this time to kind of focus when some of us can't focus because we're still out there in hunter mode. And then now with social media, TikTok, all these, these 15-second videos, 30-second videos, it is actually retraining their brains, the young ones, to get back into that ADHD. So I can definitely see that. I don't know. Is it going to cause a problem? Because if we go into a zombie attack or something, those traits are going to be very important.
Well, I think it's a little of both. And I think the problem with ADHD, and again, speaking as someone who has very, very many ADHD, the problem with ADHD is that fundamentally it creates an overwhelming amount of immaturity. Because as a person who lives in a very binary form, as you grow very quickly, there are yes, no, right, wrong, correct, incorrect. This is the pattern to reach this. This is how this process should be done. It's very straightforward. It's very straightforward. And you learn these and you accept them. With ADHD, none of those things are like, you have to literally learn everything the hard way. You have to be burned by your own mistakes. And the problem with ADHD is that without efficient parenting, without awareness of your own situation and like willingness to discipline yourself, you literally get lost, and like you don't have a calculator for what's right and wrong, what should be said, what shouldn't be said, what should be done or not done, what needs to be taken care of, priority, like the list of things. You have none of that. And as you grow up, especially untrained, you get into this very difficult situation where it's just immaturity from top to bottom in every aspect of your life. There's no foundational way to connect everything. And so the problem with ADHD is that this immaturity that it spawns, especially if it's, entering in the new generation, which is like the most fatherless generation of basically in history, aside from major wartime periods, is that you're going to have a new generation of people who are very useless, who are very selfish a lot of the time, because the only needs they've ever really desired to meet were their own. And it's because of like a constant, incessant need to hit these dopamine receptors over and over again. So holding a standard job and things like humility and, caring for the people alongside you, unless you relate to them, it's not going to be something that matters. And so I really think that it's a problem. I really do. But on the other hand, I also think that it's great for content creators with ADHD because of all the thought patterns of the majority again. So it just depends.
Let me go back to this right here, where I can see it. All right. I think this is, okay. This is, okay. People who say they have not lived in a haunted house. And again, sometimes I wonder if this, I can see where it could kind of be ADHD related. The red ones are the people who have not lived in a haunted house. Of course, their experiences with seeing things, you can see it's on the low scale. Although, look at the highest one is feeling a presence or unknown energy. And this is people who haven't, lived in this kind of environment. So, 26% have felt that or heard an unexplained sound or music, heard the voice of someone who wasn't there. So that's, to me, I don't know what they think that is. To me, that's a paranormal experience, but their house wasn't haunted. Now, it goes exponentially up for people who have lived in a haunted house. And I don't know if that is just while they were in that house or did it follow them. I don't know. I really don't know. Sleep paralysis. Here's another thing. People who experience sleep paralysis are more likely to say they've had paranormal encounters. Although I think it's kind of high. If you look at the people who haven't had sleep paralysis, it's on the higher scale to me than some of the other things. And of course, it definitely goes up. I think that's the end of the statistics. I just thought those were very interesting. Have you ever had she's 13 or 13, so am I, so it's like
what does that mean?
Of all the paranormal experiences, have you ever I'm 13 for 13 too. Sleep paralysis, I've only had that one time, and that was which that was a whole encounter. And it for me, the sleep paralysis that I had was definitely spiritual. And I know, like, there's all kind of explanations for that. Like, you're out of your body and you're coming back in, and it's actually you that, is causing this. In my case, it wasn't. This was like a long, long, long time ago. But I have, basically, when I hit puberty, I stopped sleeping. I wake up at all different times of the night, usually around 3 a.m. But I was in bed one night and I woke up and I had a night light or something that was shining in, so I could see, it was very dim, but I could see a little bit. And I was just laying there. You know how you wake up and you're like, why am I awake? It's dark 30 in the morning. Why am I awake? And so I was laying there with my eyes open, and I saw this huge, black shadow cloud. Now, I've been a Christian since I was 8, and I was probably in my early 20s, but I was still learning. Okay? I had a lot to learn. And I saw this dark thing come in the room while I'm wide awake. Okay, this isn't a dream. I'm wide awake. and it lays down. I couldn't move. And it laid down on top of me, just covered my face, like my whole body. And I could feel my breath go, like I couldn't breathe anymore. I could feel the oxygen, dissipating. And so I knew I needed to pray, but I couldn't speak. And like I said, there was a lot I needed to learn at this time, but I really knew if I could not, I just wanted to, I knew it was demonic. I knew I had to get rid of it, but I could not speak the words. I was completely paralyzed and losing my breath. And finally, and my head is going crazy. Finally, I managed with everything in me to just, I don't even know if I said the words Jesus or the word Jesus, or if I just, but something came out of my mouth. It might have just been but in my head, that's what I was saying. And as soon as I said that name, boom, it was gone. It was gone. And then after that, I made sure it never came back. And it never has. So, that was my experience was completely spiritual. And I absolutely knew what it was when it came in my room. So it may be unlike a lot of people's experiences with sleep paralysis, but that's mine. That's mine. I don't worry about it. I never have worried about it since then because I know what to do. But
yeah,
what
I've had sleep paralysis a couple of times. Most of the time, what'll happen is that I will be awake, but my body is still asleep. And I just am immediately aware that my brain hasn't reconnected to the body. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, it's scary at first. And I would basically just being aware of that, I think, is what prevented, I don't know, man. Like, sleep paralysis, people, everyone has those stories like, there's a dark, shadowy figure in the corner of my room and all this. But like, I don't know if it was just me or my like realism or like cynicism or whatever. But like, I literally am just like, oh yeah, my brain my body is still asleep. My brain hasn't quite reconnected to it to give me motor function. And so I just got to ride this out. Now I will say one time I had a similar experience. I had a dream about someone I knew. And it felt very evil. And I did the same thing at the same time. At that time, I only knew one thing to do. And it was the same situation. I was like, in my dream, I was being oppressed and I couldn't move. I couldn't, do anything. But in the dream, I just screamed Jesus. But when I woke up, I felt like I was going like, ah! And then I woke up, I was like, in real life, it was just like barely anything.
Yeah.
But that was the very first time that I ever interacted with it. And every other time since then, I guess I just have so little respect for like evil spirits and stuff like that. Like, I just don't care. You know what I mean? Like, if I think the problem is that if you are afraid of evil spirits and stuff like that, I think that's the thing that makes them powerful. Honestly,
yes.
Like, I think that's the thing
they
that
feed
gives
on fear. Them. Yes.
And so the thing is that like I can be in situations where, or even still now, like there'll be times I'm like outside at night and it's really dark, and I'll get the sensation that something is like wanting to kill me, or that it wants to rush up to me, or all this, and they'll like flash images in my mind of like, it's murderous intent, and then I just got to shake it off, because it's like, it's weird because the feeling of fear will happen before I've like processed it, and like latched onto it. But I'll like feel like I am afraid. And then I'm just got to like control myself and be like, no, this is ridiculous. This isn't like,
Right.
you know, and but the same is can be said for me about sleep paralysis. Is there was a couple of times where I woke up and I wasn't awake, and I knew that I was very vulnerable. And now I don't know about the spiritual lines, you know, like if I'm in the spirit world or if I'm, you know, whatever. I don't know, you know,
Right.
but I know that I'm vulnerable. You know, I know that it's a bad situation to be in. But I think what's important is just to realize that you're immune, you know, you're invulnerable, and that the only thing that makes it dangerous is like agreeing that it is dangerous. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, because that's the thing. That's they feed on fear, and can they actually hurt you? Absolutely. Absolutely. But it's because you lack knowledge of how to deal with these kind of things and the fear. So yeah. Uh there's a whole lot that's a whole other thing. Not, I mean, I guess it's paranormal, but not really the kind of paranormal that we're talking about. I will tell you, and I know we've been going on forever, but I will tell you one scary story that happened here in this house, and it was a dream. So this was different, and I'm not really sure, y'all, what this is. It wasn't sleep paralysis by any means. It was a dream that wasn't really a dream. I don't know how to explain it. It was in the wee hours of the morning, and in my dream, I dreamed that it wasn't a veil, it was like rubber. I'm trying to think what it would be like. It would be like a balloon, like a very thick balloon, because it was bouncy. So I knew, like, in my dream, I'm laying in my bed, and like I was, and I knew that they're all kind of spirits, ghost spirits, whatever. I don't know what they were. Something was just behind this gray balloon-like material. And so I knew they were there, and in my dream, I could see them, and I wanted to touch them, so I put my hand out, like, and I'm pushing with my hand against this, and it would bounce back because it was thick. And I'm pushing against this rubber feeling, like I can feel it on my hands in my dream as much as you can in a dream. And then I just got very, very determined to break through. I don't recommend, okay? But in my dream, this is what I was doing. So I pushed enough that my hand pushed through and broke a hole in the rubber like thing. And this is the part that was terrifying, though. When I reached my hand out and I could feel the break, something. Now, this was not a dream. I physically felt something, and it wasn't cold. That's weird. You know, you'd think if it's a spirit, it would be, you know, what they say, ghosts or whatever, or cold. It wasn't cold, but I felt another hand grab my hand and my fingers and start pulling me, and like physically pulling me, to the point that I was like coming out of the bed. It was pulling me through, trying to pull me through the rubber. And that's when, like, I sat up in bed because I could physically feel another hand on mine. And I yanked mine back, and I'm like, what in the heck was I doing? What was I thinking? You know, and I woke up like part of that was a dream. Part of that was not a dream. Maybe it wasn't all a dream. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. But, you know, I made a mental note. Don't leave that veil alone. Just leave it alone.
Yeah, you know, like if I found myself in a situation like that, I really think. So here's the thing about me, right? When I'm awake and conscious, I'm like hard and tough, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I know things and I'm aware of them, and I can deal with situations. But there's something that happens, and this is very personal information. I surely hope doesn't come to haunt me later. But like when I'm asleep, or especially when I'm asleep, but like when I let go of the wheel, right? I get like really sensitive and really vulnerable and like sweet and mushy and like childlike, you know?
Yeah.
And the thing that I wish is that, like, I want to say that if I was in a situation like that and I were awake or I was dreaming rather, and I had a dream like that where I could begin to learn more. I could interact with this weird, strange world and learn more about things like that, that I would have the courage and the strength to do it. But probably I would start shaking in that vulnerable state. And then I'd wake up and then I'd get pissed at me that I didn't get it together. And I don't know, dog, maybe that's why I don't have experiences like that, because when I'm awake, I have this exoskeleton that I wear. You know what I mean? It's not that it's not that I'm afraid of being vulnerable with people, but it's just this automatic setting that I have where, I deduce and I observe and I, all this. And maybe it's because there's a part of me that isn't very vulnerable when I'm conscious. And maybe that's how some people experience these things, is that they're just wide open all the time. And then they have access to, or even that things want to mess with them more or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe.
But,
I don't know. If you're going to go by the scientific study that we started with, I would fit that category, being ADD, ADHD, and, having these experiences. But I personally do not believe that it is related, only that we're kind of hyper aware and focused at times. But I don't know, y'all have had so many good stories in here. Wow, the chat has been really good, all of your experiences.
Next week we should literally just get we should compile a list of all the stories that we have and just go through them, one at a time.
And Shay was talking about, I think she's going to email me her story, her UFO story. And then David I'll have to go back in here. He was talking about a Bigfoot thing. I would like to look at all of those. And I tell you, on my other channel that I do all the paranormal stories, most of them are ghosts. There's a lot of, I've done so many videos on that now, but a lot of ghost stories and a lot of stuff that's the same way of, we don't know what it is. It's something. But I feel like, and I sometimes I catch flack on that channel because people assume that because I'm telling a ghost story that I'm not saved. And, look, I'm telling other people's stories.
I find that interesting that people would hit you up on YouTube about you're not saved and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah. It's like, this is the way of repentance, blah, blah, blah. Those are demons. That's not a ghost. That's a demon. Okay, let me tell you something. And I don't do lives like this on there. But I tell you something. I know what you're saying, and I'll put down in the comments when they comment on my video. I've been saved since I was 8. I understand. I know, but the thing is I feel like you have to give people a platform to speak. Because a lot of people will say, or will tell me things, and it's like you have to give. Especially when they do their own stuff and their own stories in the comments, you have to have a conversation. How are you supposed to have a conversation and help anybody with any problem that they're having, or if they're having a paranormal problem? If you're just going to say, if you're going to give a religious answer, that's just ridiculous. It's the same thing as people who have experienced, UFOs, Bigfoot, whatever paranormal ghosts, whatever paranormal thing, look, that is their truth. And you didn't live it, so you don't know. So, look, if you don't know, just be quiet.
And that's the thing, even with all the skepticism that I've had towards cryptids and all this stuff, as much skepticism as I have, it doesn't matter. If you have a story that is your story, I have to believe, that at least that's what you experienced, and then work from there with my disbelief. That's my issue, but I don't get to tell you what you saw. That's not my business, so I think I really like conversations like this, and it really does bother me, people who just write off things entirely because they believe something else,
Yeah. I hate this for you, Moonlight. that after all that you were diagnosed with psychosis. And let me tell you something. That is the reason right there that I will not I will not go and be diagnosed. Saw a psychiatrist one time because I knew as an adult I had ADHD. I already knew that from a lot of the internet stuff. But let me put my email up there again. But I already knew. I went in there for one specific purpose, and I did a follow-up, and that was it. Because you're not going to get me to talk about all this other stuff, because I know look, people, they're trained in a scientific way, but science is not married to the spiritual, and so it's like, I know
fully
you're giving
encapsulate all of reality and its possibilities.
Right. I'm glad you have a good therapist, but I am sure that I would get some really crazy diagnosis. Wait, let's see. I'm trying to put my email up here again. It won't let me write it out. I have to make it a little bit different, but you can get that. Let me make sure that's right, David. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, and it's hard. It's hard because I'm medical and I've worked psych. I think working psych is the reason I know that I'm not crazy. I know what real crazy looks like. I mean, but if I were to sit down and, just tell somebody, a psychiatrist, all this stuff, they would give me a bunch of prescriptions and, yeah, and a lot of diagnoses, but it's different. It's different. I can say this though. I know 100% where I would be, and should I be, from all my past traumas and histories and all the things that I've, not only from a kid but as an adult, have experienced, should I be in a corner, sucking my thumb somewhere? Probably. Or in jail next to Hannibal Lecter, because I know what the enemy wanted to do with me. But this is why, God came in to my life when I was 8 years old. I was saved. I haven't changed my mind. And it is only 100% only Him that makes me sane. And, it's been a wild ride. It's been a wild ride. But that's the thing, is I understand that there are people that have mental illnesses and it's organic. It's hard as a health worker, to say, well, not everybody, but there are certain things, like there's just certain trait, like you can just tell. I don't know how to explain it. You can tell when somebody's got a mental disorder and when somebody is really just open. I don't know, open is the right word, but experiences paranormal or, whatever thing. But anyway, that's that. But yeah, we should continue this next week. And what is Shay saying? Let's see. If you were all alone on an island, you could have cancer and there's nothing you can do. But unless somebody tells you you're mentally ill, you'd never have a single indication. That's true. I mean, I think the only time I've actually been called psycho is by an ex-husband, who was a narcissist. Yeah, you're going to make me psycho. You're going to bring that out in me. But no, I mean, there is a difference. And are some people just, I don't know. Some people, especially on my other channel, I got one comment story that I didn't share because I truly believe that this man 100% believes his story. Like, it's very real to him. But as I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that's a hot mess. That is a hot mess. And I cannot, because not only is it's not just that it's bizarre, his thought patterns. I'm like, he's going to be open to ridicule. Like the comments from this story, it's going to be very, it's going to be cruel. So I don't do stuff like that. Anyway, any last thoughts? I've got to go back and read all y'all's stuff. Y'all have been so interesting tonight. Any last thoughts, Brain Bungler?
No, I'm just in here thinking, I want to do content of my own, but I just don't know what to do it on quite yet. Because I'm interested in comedy. I'm interested in, lighthearted topics and subjects.
Yes.
I'm interested in stuff like this. I don't know, but I'd like to, have something. So, because things like this, this is fun, and it goes well, but depending on the mood of the day that I'm in, it'd be difficult to have one channel dedicated to serious topics.
Well, that's why I do too, because even in my ghost stories, I try to keep it light. I mean, it's spooky, but I make a lot of funny comments and observations, because there's some things it's like, should I be prepared for this in the afterlife? It is more lighthearted. It's not, spooky, terrifying. It is real people's stories, but I try to keep it. That's my break. And even ones like this is not too heavy for me, because normally I'm talking about true crime and I get very it's very heavy. Some of this was heavy, but it's a good break. It's a good mind break. So I would say, I don't know. A lot of people do a lot of different stuff, or start 2 channels. You can do Brain Bungler, the serious stuff, and then Brain Bungler something else, where you just talk about the most ridiculous things.
I honestly, despite all of this, the thing I want to do the most is just host a show where I can be ADHD and talk about things that aren't important, that no one cares about, and make jokes, and it's funny, and then that's it. And then be, but
well, you could interview people, you could, and then you could have some serious shows where, think Joe Rogan. Some stuff is really makes you angry. Some stuff is, scary. Some stuff is just, funny. The funniest people,
Yeah, well,
Oh, look at that's a good idea. Can't talk and vape. That's a good one.
more ADHD MCs are needed in this space. I feel like that's all. Like the only good content creators are ADHD.
Yeah.
But
look at, did you see what Hiawatha said? Title it, prove it to me.
Yeah, I don't want to be so like, I don't know, I know I come off here like, almost like facetious or almost like condescending, and I don't want to be that way. I just got this crazy duality about me, like I typically I'm lighthearted and I don't care about anything. But then there are times where I do care about things, it's tough. You want a channel or a person or a brand to be very like, at least pseudo one-dimensional, in the way that like, I know what to expect from this person. But,
I don't know. But see, I mean, that's why I titled mine Silky Southern Tea. I've told crime stories. I've done paranormal stories. And I mean, yes, I've been really, really hitting true crime. But I want to tell you, I mean, this actually is one that could go on my other channel too, but it's like, it's whatever it is, whether we're talking about fairies and the missing 911 and whatever that was that had the fairy, fairies, and I can't even remember Mount Shasta or something. Anyway, it can be whatever. And I think the thing of it is, when people people are more than one dimensional too. You have to remember that. Even though the biggest majority of my, people that watch Silky Southern is for the true crime angle that I do. But look, when you watch YouTube, you don't watch the same thing. Like I have two channels. I have mine that I don't even watch my channel. I mean, I go and check my videos and make sure they're okay. But, sound and all that kind of stuff. But as far as watching, I've got my private channel that I've had since like 2010, maybe earlier. And I mean, you look out when I pull up my recommended videos, they are all over the place, like all over. And so, that's the way people's minds are.
Yeah, I guess so, man. I don't know. I just gotta do it. I just gotta do something,
Yeah. And you can subscribe to him, even though he doesn't have any videos up. You just look up put the Brain Bungler, and his channel will come up. It's going to be hard if you don't put Brain Bungler, one word.
Yeah.
Because that's how I found it today. But, you can go ahead and so then when he does put out content, you'll know where to find him.
I used to stream on Twitch, and that's what I enjoyed. But now, if I migrate to YouTube, I don't know if I can just plop out one unedited, video. It's like that just doesn't feel like the way it's supposed to be done. But that's the type of content I enjoy creating. So just live hanging out content instead of like, edited deep dive, like information, put it all together,
I know, I do too. I honestly do. I enjoy these things more. I enjoy my members only. And there's not a whole lot of members, but I like to do that. If I would love to just put everybody up on panel and let's just all talk, about whatever. I don't even care. It's my time to just, share with people, laugh. Hopefully I find some funny articles to look at or something. All right. Well, I know we've gone like way longer than I thought we would go tonight. So I am going to end it. I know people have to go to sleep. Some people will be catching the rest of this tomorrow. Thanks for being here, Brain Bungler. We'll continue. What is that? We'll continue. That's the ADHD kicking in right there. Right there. All right. We'll see you all next week. I appreciate you all so, so much. Stay safe. Get some sleep. Whatever you do. Subscribe to Brain Bungler. And for heaven's sakes, stay silky, okay?